Chapter 3046. That won't happen. Lei Ling will definitely be defeated, and the immortal calling sword will eventually belong to the heaven-piercing immortal sect. However, Jianxin is sincere and benevolent. I'm afraid he won't kill Lei Ling. Ning Wuji smiled faintly. Then let's wait until after this battle. Tai Qingzi said non-committally. Tai Qingzi, Ning Wuji, I think Lei Ling will definitely win this battle. This brat is decisive. I hope you won't feel bad when Jianxin dies in his hands. Gu Tongtian said indifferently. Gu Tongtian, you seem to have confidence in Lei Ling. However, if this godson dies in the immortal demon cave, what will the Shun clan rely on? Ning Wuji sneered. The Shun clan has never relied on anyone. The 12 ancestor gods, the heaven-piercing emperor, and Lei Ling. The strength of the Shun clan has never been the strength of a single person. So what if Lei Ling dies? However, Jianxin is the only one left in the heaven-piercing immortal sect, right? If Jianxin dies, the heaven-piercing immortal sect will be annihilated. Gu Tongtian smiled proudly and stood with his hands behind his back. A domineering aura filled the air. Hearing the conversation between the three supreme immortal monarchs, the eyes of the supreme elders flashed with a sharp light. Ning Wuji's face instantly turned ashen. Gu Tongtian's words stabbed right into his heart. Just now, dozens of life tokens of the heaven-piercing immortal sect's disciples had been shattered. Ning Wuji guessed that it was most likely Lei Ling's doing. Therefore, he hoped that Jianxin could kill Lei Ling. However, Gu Tongtian's words were exactly what he was worried about. If Jianxin died in Lei Ling's hands, the heaven-piercing immortal sect would really vomit blood this time. At this moment, in the ruins where the ancestral god spring was located, the auras of the 36 divine generals were extremely terrifying and mighty, as if they could shatter the universe. If it weren't for the ancestral god spring's boundary, this space that was on the verge of destruction wouldn't be able to withstand their terrifying auras. Emperor. After Ling Xiao unlocked the bloodline shackles for them, coupled with the majestic origin energy in the ancestral god spring, the 36 divine generals had accumulated a lot of power and passed the Imperial Emperor tribulation one after another. All of them broke through to the Imperial Emperor realm. Tai Xian, who was in a coma, was also startled by the terrifying aura. Thus, the 36 divine generals and Tai Xian all saw the scene of the battle in the void. Victory for the Son of God. Tung Shan's vital energy and blood surged as a murderous aura spread out. His eyes were filled with fanaticism as he knelt down on one knee in midair and spoke resolutely. Victory for the Son of God. The 36 divine generals shouted in unison. Their voices were like thunder shaking the void. The pool of ancestral god spring water that had accumulated for countless years had been completely absorbed and refined by them. It was as if they had been reborn. All of them revealed their sharpness, and the aura around them was incomparably terrifying. From then on, the 36 disciples of the ancient god cult became the 36 immortal generals under the command of Ling Xiao, the Son of God. Tai Xian was shocked. He stared at the void and said with a complicated expression, Lei Ling is actually fighting with the sword heart? This battle is really intense. He naturally knew how powerful the sword heart was, especially when the sword heart had used the I Chi into Trinity technique of the Tai immortal sect. In Tai Xian's opinion, even his brother Tai Yuan would find it difficult to defeat the sword heart who had used the I Chi into Trinity technique. However, Tai Xian had a feeling that Lei Ling would win in the end. Lei Ling, if you defeat the sword heart saint, my brother will be in trouble. Tai Xian's eyes darted around. No one knew what he was thinking about. However, he tragically realized that the 36 immortal generals did not show any signs of leaving. They were guarding the place loyally and watching him as if they were waiting for Ling Xiao's return. The Void Battleground. The battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint had already lasted for thousands of moves. Ling Xiao could feel the power of the Sword Heart Saint. He was truly a peerless genius who was born for the sword. Only Duge Qiubai could be compared to him. However, the Sword Heart Saint was in an extremely tragic situation. This was because he had encountered Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's physical body was too abnormal. It was so strong that it made others feel hopeless. After merging the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc, as well as the chaotic divine bone in his chest, Ling Zhao's bones could withstand an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. Although the Sword Heart Saint was strong and he had the God-slaying sword, an extreme Dao Emperor weapon, he could not break through Ling Zhao's defense. On the contrary, Ling Zhao's strong physical body gave him a strong sense of oppression. The unparalleled fist print seemed to be able to annihilate everything. Every strike carried a vast amount of power, causing the Sword Heart Saint to tremble. He was greatly affected. Moreover, Ling Xiao had formed the space-time Dao fruit. Time and space were controlled by Ling Xiao. He could control the power of space and time as he wished. Although the Sword Heart Saint's cultivation level was higher than Ling Xiao's, the power of time did not affect him much. However, the power of time and space combined caused him a lot of trouble. Most importantly, Ling Xiao had unfathomable speed. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint were evenly matched. However, in the Sword Heart Saint's eyes, he was already at a disadvantage. How could the deity tribe produce such a monstrous person? The Sword Heart Saint was shocked and thought with a sigh. Once such a person matured, he would definitely be incomparably strong. So strong that it was terrifying. Sword Heart, take my fist. Ling Xiao suddenly roared. His eyes were extremely sharp, and there seemed to be a strange light flickering. It was mysterious and indifferent as if it could see through everything. The Sword Heart Saint could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Eye of the Ruler. Ling Zhao's Eye of the Ruler was formed by the combination of chaos, fate, cause and effect and reincarnation Dao origins. The Eye of the Ruler could see through everything. It could see through 3,000 worlds and reflect all things in the universe. It could even see through the divine immortal stone. Naturally, it could see through everything in an expert's body. Ling Xiao was using the Eye of the Ruler to see through the Sword Heart Saint's flaws and find a sure kill blow. Rumble. His fist was unparalleled as it blasted across the sky. It was as if an endless void was pressing down. At the same time, it contained a mysterious fluctuation of time. He had combined the power of time and space, making this fist extremely terrifying. It completely locked on to the Sword Heart Saint. At the same time, in Ling Zhao's eyes, the four Sword Heart Saints' origin energy revolved within their bodies. The condensation of sword qi, the profoundness of immortal skills, and even the runes on their Dao fruits appeared clearly. However, using the Eye of the Ruler to see through the Sword Heart Saint was a huge burden on Ling Xiao. Therefore, it only took a moment. However, at this moment, Ling Zhao's fist had already arrived in front of the Sword Heart Saint. Then it exploded. Gotcha. The Sword Heart Saint was blasted apart by Ling Zhao's fist. Third Sect Master. Chapter 3047. Boom. The Sword Heart exploded in front of Ling Xiao and turned into a wisp of clear air, flying back into the saint's body. One of the three clones had been destroyed by Ling Xiao. The powerful sword formation formed by the four-word sword technique of slaying and extinction instantly became incomplete. Rumble. Ling Zhao's eyes were extremely sharp, and the aura around him was like a dragon, emitting an extremely violent aura. He struck in the air and blasted out thousands of punches in an instant. The vast fist intent swept across the void, destroying the sword qi in the sky, and enveloping the other two clones of the Sword Heart Saint. Destroy. A cold light flashed in the Sword Heart Saint's eyes. The god-slaying sword emitted an unparalleled light, piercing towards Ling Zhao's forehead. Ling Xiao felt a piercing pain between his eyebrows when he sensed the terrifying origin energy of slaughter. If the god-slaying sword really pierced his forehead, even if Ling Xiao did not die, he would suffer an unimaginable injury. Clang. However, Ling Xiao did not hold back. He still pounced towards the other two clones. At the same time, he activated the Great Slaying Immortal Art and took out the God-Slaying Sword, facing the Sword Heart Saint. Rumble. Ling Zhao's fist intent was unparalleled, and it could destroy everything. It instantly enveloped the two clones of the Sword Heart Saint. Their physical bodies were weak to begin with, so naturally, they were unable to withstand Ling Zhao's violent attack head-on. They all exploded one after another. The God-Slaying Sword and the God-Slaying Sword collided, and a dazzling immortal light burst out. The Sword Heart Saint's aura was unparalleled, and his sword intent rose. He actually sent the God-Slaying Sword flying. The God-Slaying Sword was like a long rainbow, and its speed was extremely fast. It pierced through the air towards Ling Xiao's forehead. Boom! Ling Xiao clapped his palms together, and the flesh on his hands that had just recovered was instantly torn apart by the sword qi. However, his purple hand bone was crystal clear, and it instantly caught the god-slaying sword, and a loud clanging sound was heard. The sword qi of the god-slaying sword pierced through Ling Xiao's forehead, and it wanted to rush into his sea of consciousness to wreak havoc. However, it was all devoured by Ling Xiao's devouring origin. The three pure ones technique was broken, and the three clones turned back into three streams of clear qi and flew back into the Sword Heart Saint's body. However, the Sword Heart Saint could clearly feel the immense pressure that Ling Xiao brought to him. Rumble! Ling Xiao stared at the Saint of the Sword Heart and smiled faintly. His gaze instantly became extremely sharp. He clamped the immortal slaying sword with both hands, and a terrifying aura burst forth. Then his whole body went straight up, and the friction between the bones of his hand and the immortal slaying sword even burst forth with an incomparably blazing immortal light. The Zhu immortal sword flew past Ling Xiao's ear, and Ling Xiao's palms suddenly pressed onto the Sword Heart Saint's chest. Puff! The Sword Heart Saint Sun's chest shook violently. Unparalleled divine power surged, instantly causing his chest to cave in. Even his bones were shattered. His face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Sword Heart Saint Sun's eyes revealed a trace of unwillingness. His sword qi was unparalleled and could annihilate everything. It had always been successful and had killed countless experts. However, it had lost its effect on Ling Xiao. He had only caused superficial injuries to Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao's attack was not something he could withstand. Although it was only one palm from Ling Xiao, it almost shattered his physical body. Lei Ling, you are very strong. However, I still have a sword. Even I can't control this sword. If you can't withstand it, you will die. The Sword Heart Saint Sun stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. His eyes were filled with rising sword essence. Is that so? Then I really want to see it. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The aura around him became more and more terrifying. At this stage of the battle, Ling Xiao also felt a strong pressure from the Sword Heart Saint Sun. However, in this way, Ling Xiao's powerful potential was also stimulated. His unparalleled fist essence swept out in all directions. Even the Sword Heart Saint Sun did not dare to take his fist directly. Kill! The Sword Heart Saint Sun suddenly roared, and the life origin around him actually began to burn. His body emitted a void fire, and even his indestructible primordial spirit began to burn. His glabella bloomed with a bright light. The god-slaying sword in his hand instantly turned blood red. It was extremely strange, but the killing aura was even purer and more intense. Sword of Karma. The Sword Heart's voice slowly rang out. The god-slaying sword was like a blood-red line, crossing the sky and piercing towards Ling Xiao's glabella. That blood-red line was extremely strange, as if it was connected to some incomparably mysterious power. When Ling Xiao first saw it, he felt a chill in his heart. It was as if he could not avoid this sword. Sword of Karma? Could it be the power of karma? Ling Xiao's heart trembled, but he did not have the slightest intention of retreating. He directly punched out. Boom! His blood qi surged, and an overbearing power erupted like a volcano. The vast chaotic fist print was as if it was going to split the heavens and earth. At the same time, the Karma Dao fruit between Ling Xiao's glabella was dazzling. It emitted a mysterious aura and trembled slightly. Puff! In the next moment, the blood-red line formed by the god-slaying sword pierced through Ling Xiao's glabella. Ling Xiao's fist also punched through the Sword Heart Saint's chest. The blood-red light spread out and dyed Ling Xiao's glabella red. The terrifying sword essence wreaked havoc in Ling Xiao's consciousness, as if it was going to destroy his primordial spirit. Ling Xiao's fist had also completely shattered the Sword Heart Saint's chest, sending him flying. He directly exploded into a blood mist in the void. It was an internecine outcome. Tragic. Ling Xiao's body trembled violently, as if his entire body had been tainted by the blood-red light. His aura began to weaken rapidly, and the light in his eyes dimmed like a candle flame in the wind. His life was rapidly fading away. There was a trace of regret and disappointment in his eyes as he stared indifferently at the void in the distance. Sword Heart, I didn't expect you to be afraid. Buzz. Just as Ling Xiao's voice fell, The Sword Heart Saint's figure appeared in the void. However, he did not seem to be in a good condition. His face was extremely pale, and his aura was weak. He had been severely injured. The Karma Sword was his most powerful trump card in secret. However, it also represented an unbearable price. Under that sword, his lifespan had been reduced by at least 1,000,000 years. However, the damage caused by that sword was enough. Lei Ling, I'm not afraid. I'm just avoiding harm. However, you have been hit by my Karma Sword. You will definitely die. The Sword Heart Saint's eyes revealed a trace of inexplicable emotion as he spoke slowly. Is that so? Originally, I really thought that you would risk your life and use the Sword of Karma to kill me. However, I didn't expect you to use a death substitute puppet. Fear has already formed in your heart. You are afraid. Therefore, I am very disappointed that you can't use the ultimate sword. Ling Xiao said slowly. His gaze was calm, as if he did not care that his entire body was enveloped by the blood-red light. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3048. It was not the real body of the Sword Heart Saint that was destroyed by his punch. It was a scapegoat puppet. If the Sword Heart Saint was hit by his punch, even if he did not die, his physical body would be completely destroyed and his primordial spirit would be severely injured. But at the last moment, the Sword Heart Saint was afraid, so he used the scapegoat puppet. A scapegoat puppet that could be used by a third heaven immortal lord must be a treasure left behind by a great emperor. Even the Tongtian immortal emperor would not have many of them. Ling Xiao was disappointed that this was not the swordsman he had imagined. The Sword Heart was far inferior to Duguqiubai. Lei Ling, whether I use the scapegoat puppet or not, you will die. What's the difference? The Sword Heart Saint looked ferocious as he stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. Ling Xiao's words seemed to have touched the bottom of his heart. He was indeed afraid just now. Death was not scary, but it was not worth dying. He was the Sword Heart, born with the immortal sword body, the hope of the Tongtian immortal sect, and the demonic existence who created the four-word sword technique. Now the immortal culling sword and the heavenly sword diagram were within his reach. How could he die? How could he bear to die? As long as Ling Xiao died, not only would the immortal culling sword be his, but the heavenly sword diagram would also be his. When he obtained the celestial slashing sword, he would be the next Tongtian immortal emperor with the heavenly sword diagram and the four great immortal swords. This was a temptation that he could not resist. So what if he was afraid? Of course there is a difference. If you fought with your life on the line, you might not be able to kill me, but you could severely injure me and win my respect. Perhaps you would not die. But you are afraid, and you have disappointed me. I used to compare you with a friend of mine, but now it seems that you are not worthy. There is only one Duguqiubai. You are afraid, so you will die too. Ling Xiao shook his head and said lightly, Rumble. The terrifying aura around his body emerged once again. The red light around his body quickly dissipated, and finally disappeared. His chi and blood rose, and his life force was vast and powerful. There were no signs of injuries. What? Impossible. This was impossible. You were struck by my sword of karma. Even if your primordial spirit has a defensive treasure, you can't escape the power of karma. How can you not die? The Sword Heart Saint's eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. He couldn't help but roar. That was the sword of karma. No one could escape the power of karma, so how did Ling Xiao do it? That's right. I was indeed struck by your sword of karma, but I didn't die. On the contrary, you've disappointed me, so I'll kill you. Ling Xiao said calmly. That karma sword was indeed the power of karma. Moreover, it was the fusion of karma and sword Dao. It was extremely terrifying. However, that sword did not have an indomitable ferocity, so the power of karma was naturally weakened. Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness contained the karma Dao fruit, so even though the sword had pierced Ling Xiao's heart, it was completely absorbed by the karma Dao fruit. Ling Xiao's injured state just now was just an act. However, if Jianqin really fought to the death, his karmic sword would probably pierce through Ling Xiao's soul and severely injure him. Even with his karmic Dao fruit, he had misjudged the Sword Heart Saint. Impossible. You must be lying to me. No one can block the sword of karma, unless you. The Sword Heart Saint roared as his face became extremely ferocious. However, he suddenly thought of something and his eyes were filled with shock. You condensed the Karma Dao fruit? The Sword Heart Saint's voice was trembling as huge waves surged in his heart. How could this be? Ling Xiao had already condensed the space-time Dao fruit, so how could he condense the Karma Dao fruit? It was impossible to condense these two supreme Dao fruits at the same time. How did Ling Xiao do it? You're right, but there's no reward. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Then he punched out and a vast fist intent instantly enveloped the Sword Heart Saint. Rumble. The Sword Heart Saint had already suffered a huge backlash after using the Sword of Karma. He had less than 10% of his strength left, so how could he block Ling Xiao's attack? After a while, the Sword Heart Saint let out an indignant and angry roar before he was blasted apart by Ling Xiao. As for his primordial spirit, it was swallowed by Ling Xiao and suppressed in his consciousness. Ling Xiao used the Devouring Heaven secret skill to destroy his true spirit and devour his memories. After all, regardless of whether it was the Qi into Trinity or the Sword of Karma, Ling Xiao was extremely envious of them. The Sword Heart Saint was dead. Ling Xiao stood in the middle of the void battleground. Although his body was covered in blood and flesh, his Qi and blood surged. His terrifying aura seemed to be able to destroy everything. Boundless baleful aura condensed, and an invincible aura spread out. He looked into the distance and his eyes were deep and calm. It was as though he had seen through the endless void, and saw those who were watching the battle. Gotcha. In the next moment, the projection of the void battleground was completely destroyed. The Sword Heart Saint is dead. How can Lei Ling be so strong? I felt that my primordial spirit was about to be shattered by the Sword Heart Saint's last strike. It was extremely terrifying. How did Lei Ling dodge it? In the Immortal Demon Cave, everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. This battle was too exciting and too tragic. Especially when the Sword Heart Saint stabbed out with the Sword of Karma. Everyone thought that Ling Xiao was dead, but they did not expect the Sword Heart Saint to be the one who died in the end. This Lei Ling is too terrifying. He will definitely become a great enemy of the deity tribe in the future. Many experts of the deity tribe were filled with worry and fear. The Sword Heart is dead? Tai Yuan's expression was uncertain, and his eyes were filled with deep fear. In the space of the relic where the ancestral devouring holy spring was, the 36 divine generals began to cheer. They were extremely excited and roared continuously. Their roar shook the heavens. The Son of God is invincible. 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 This battle had deepened Ling Xiao's invincible image in their hearts. Lei Ling, he really killed the Sword Heart? Tai Xian's eyes were filled with disbelief. Doesn't this mean that the heavenly sword diagram is going to fall into his hands? Something big is going to happen. Tai Xian's body trembled as though he had thought of something terrifying. His face was extremely pale. Who could defeat Ling Xiao with the heavenly sword diagram? Even the Taiyuan saint might not be able to defeat Ling Xiao. Tai Xian could already see the horrifying scene of the deity tribe being slaughtered by Ling Xiao alone in the Immortal Demon Cave. Chapter 3049. Lei Ling, you deserve to die. Outside the Immortal Demon Cave, a cold voice filled with killing intent rang out. It was like a thunderclap, exploding with endless rumbling sounds. In front of Ning Wuji, the last life token representing the Sword Heart Saint shattered. His eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent and fury, and a terrifying aura instantly erupted from his body. Immortal light shone brightly, and auspicious vapors rose. Boundless sword qi shot out, making Ning Wuji shine brightly, emitting a monstrous killing intent and sword intent. The originally gentle and refined Ning Wuji had completely gone berserk. The aura of a peerless immortal lord exploded, causing the supreme elders of the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects to turn pale. They all revealed fearful expressions and retreated one after another. Only Tai Qingzi and Gu Tongtian were not affected by the aura. Everyone looked at Ning Wuji with sympathy. The Sword Heart Saint actually died in the hands of Lei Ling. The Sword Heart Saint was Ning Wuji's personal disciple, the most dazzling existence in the entire heaven-connecting immortal sect. Ning Wuji had already appointed him as the young sect master of the heaven-connecting immortal sect. This time, in order to prevent any accidents from happening in the immortal demon cave, Ning Wuji even handed the immortal slaying sword to the Sword Heart Saint. However, the Sword Heart Saint still died. Gu Tongtian Lei Ling must die. Whoever dares to stop me, I will kill them. Ning Wuji suddenly raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. He stared at Gu Tongtian and said coldly. The killing intent in his voice was extremely intense. Ning Wuji, you also know how to feel heartache? How many talented disciples of the 6 major divine sects have died over the years? Do you really think that the people of the deity tribe are your prey? This time, I will let you have a taste of what it is like to be prey. Gu Tongtian glanced at Ning Wuji indifferently. Brother Ning, my condolences. This Lei Ling has already turned into a demon. He will definitely become a great threat to the immortal world in the future. Don't worry, if he dares to come out, I will not let him off. Tai Qingzi said coldly. However, he was a little worried. The strength that Lei Ling had displayed was too heaven-defying. Even Jianxin had died at his hands. Tai Qingzi was a little worried about Tai Yuan. Although Tai Yuan's cultivation was strong, was he really Lei Ling's match? At this moment, everyone from the 9 major immortal sects had solemn looks on their faces. They all saw Lei Ling as their greatest enemy. That's not right. Why didn't the immortal extermination sword fly out? Could it be in Lei Ling's hands? Suddenly someone asked doubtfully. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they remembered. Since the Sword Heart Saint was already dead, then the Zhuxian sword should have flown back to its owner, which was Ning Yanji. But why hadn't it flown back yet? If it falls into Lei Ling's hands, we'll be in big trouble. Everyone's expression changed. Even Ning Yanji's expression became extremely ugly. The killing intent in his eyes became even more intense. When Ling Xiao was battling with the Sword Heart Saint, the sword diagram that appeared in the void battleground was clearly seen by everyone. Ning Yanji also recognized it at a glance. That was the heavenly sword diagram. Since the Sword Heart Saint was already dead, then the heavenly sword diagram must have fallen into Lei Ling's hands. With the heavenly sword diagram, even if the Zhuxian sword had been refined by Ning Yanji, it should have been imprisoned by the heavenly sword diagram. Puff! Ning Yanji's face suddenly turned pale. The sword chi around his body hummed and shook violently. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. How could it be so fast? His eyes were filled with disbelief. The natal brand that he had left in the Zhuxian sword had been erased. In the immortal demon cave. Clang! Clang! 2 clear sounds of swords rang out. The immortal culling sword and the Zhuxian sword trembled slightly. They turned into 2 divine rainbows and were instantly sucked into the heavenly sword diagram. The heavenly sword diagram swept over and sucked Ling Xiao in as well. Rumble. Ling Xiao seemed to have arrived in a chaotic void. It was like the beginning of the world. Sword essence rose around him, and sword radiance flashed. It was like a world of swords. As soon as Ling Xiao entered this world, he was attracted by a sword. Or rather, it was not a sword. It was just a sword embryo. In front of Ling Xiao, the sword embryo looked neither gold nor jade. It was milky white and flowed with a halo. It had vaguely taken the shape of a sword, and was floating in the void. But this sword embryo made Ling Xiao feel a vast and boundless sword essence, like an endless sea. The immortal culling sword contained the killing intent, and could bring about endless destruction. The immortal culling sword contained the heavenly punishment and Tao annihilation, with the majesty and dominance of a king. But whether it was the immortal culling sword or the immortal culling sword, Ling Xiao could feel that they were inferior to the sword embryo in front of him. Rumble. Chaotic light surged in the surroundings as sword chi rose. It was as if they were all pouring into the sword embryo, causing the sword embryo to flicker and flicker. That feeling, it was like a person's breathing. This was a sword embryo that had been nurtured with spirituality. Could this be the sword embryo that the heavenly Grandmaster Emperor mentioned? Devour. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Ling Xiao recalled the message left behind by the heavenly Grandmaster Emperor in the Hall of Gods. The heavenly Grandmaster Emperor had left a sword embryo in the heavenly Grandmaster sword diagram. It was the Supreme Emperor weapon that the Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor wanted to refine. But unfortunately, the Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor did not succeed in refining it. He only left the sword embryo in the Heavenly Grandmaster sword diagram to nurture it. The Heavenly Grandmaster Emperor has been dead for countless years. This sword embryo has also been nurtured for countless years. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a glint. He suddenly felt that the sword embryo in front of him seemed to be connected to him by blood. It was as if it was prepared for him. This feeling was not felt when Ling Xiao was refining the immortal culling sword or other Supreme Emperor weapons. Ling Xiao slowly walked towards the sword embryo. Rumble. Just when Ling Xiao was 100 feet away from the sword embryo, a powerful sword essence rose instantly. It was extremely sharp, as if the Supreme Emperor of Swords had come back to life. The sword embryo instantly released a vast and unparalleled sword Dao pressure. The mighty sword will press down on Ling Xiao. In an instant, it was as if hundreds of millions of divine mountains were pressing down on his body. At the same time, a shocking divine sword appeared in his sea of consciousness. It exuded an aura that made his primordial spirit tremble. Ling Xiao's movements instantly became incomparably difficult. The sword embryo instantly shone brightly. Thousands of rays of divine light shone brightly and thousands of rays of auspicious qi. It buzzed and vibrated, exuding an extremely sharp sword radiance. The vast sword essence shrouded Ling Xiao's surroundings. Ling Xiao felt as if he had fallen into a boundless storm. Is this the test of the sword embryo? Ling Xiao's eyes became brighter and brighter. His body exuded a vast and unparalleled aura. His blood qi rose and surged. He channeled all of his cultivation to withstand the powerful sword intent, and walked step by step toward the sword embryo. P.S. Second update. After yesterday's outburst, I went on a business trip today. In the future, Muyu will make sure to update twice and make more outbursts. Thank you for your support. Chapter 3050. Rumble. That powerful sword intent rose and enveloped Ling Xiao's entire body, forming a peerless pressure that was terrifying to the extreme. Ling Xiao moved forward as if he was carrying billions of divine mountains. Every step he took was earth-shattering and thunderous. The surrounding chaotic mist surged as sword radiance fell on his body like rain. It was extremely sharp as if it could destroy everything. Clang clang clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard as the sword radiance left white marks on Ling Xiao's body. There were even traces of blood on his body. It was clear how terrifying the sword radiance was. If it was not for Ling Xiao's strong physical body, other imperial emperors would not even be able to get close to the sword embryo. They would have been torn apart by the sword radiance. What a terrifying sword essence. It's just a sword embryo, but it's already so powerful. How terrifying would it be when it's refined into a real Supreme Emperor weapon? Ling Xiao was extremely shocked. The sword embryo's power was not inferior to the immortal culling sword, even though it was not in Supreme Emperor weapon. It was no wonder that the Grandmaster Emperor valued the sword embryo so much. He even said that the sword embryo could refine the 4 heavenly immortal swords and become a peerless sword. This made Ling Xiao even more determined to obtain the sword embryo. Boom. He took large strides forward as the aura around him rose. His eyes were extremely sharp as he withstood the majestic sword Dao pressure and walked towards the sword embryo. 100 feet, 90 feet, 80 feet, 50 feet, 30 feet. Soon, Ling Xiao was within 100 feet of the sword embryo. Rumble. Just as Ling Xiao was within 100 feet of the sword embryo, the strong sword essence surged like a storm, and the pressure became even more terrifying. The sword embryo emitted boundless light, as if it could pierce through the heavens and the earth. It was extremely bright. The surrounding chaotic mist suddenly burst into flames, turning into chaotic flames that were burning the sword embryo. Under the burning of the chaotic flames, the sword embryo shone brighter and brighter. At the same time, Ling Xiao was enveloped by the chaotic flames. Is this sword embryo about to become a sword? Didn't the Grandmaster Emperor say that only by refining the 4 heavenly immortal swords can it become a peerless sword? Ling Xiao thought to himself. He did not take a step back. The chaotic flames contained the power of origin. As the flames rose, they seemed to be able to incinerate everything. Even Ling Xiao's physical body could not withstand it. Almost instantly, his flesh and blood were melted by the flame of chaos, turning into a majestic blood chi that surged into the sword embryo. All that was left of Ling Xiao was a sparkling and translucent purple-gold skeleton. Only his head was relatively intact, and where his heart was, there was a small sun shining brightly. This was the final step of the sword embryo turning into a sword. Ling Xiao's bloodline had already become one with the sword embryo. He could feel that the sword embryo seemed to have become his arm, and was actually refined by him in an instant. There was no obstruction at all. Rumble. It was as if the primal chaos flame was burning even more fiercely after refining Ling Xiao's flesh and blood and boundless life origin. The sword embryo emitted a dazzling light. Four dazzling balls of light appeared around the sword embryo. They were dazzling, as if they had formed a mysterious formation. They emitted a powerful aura. The immortal culling sword and immortal slaying sword that had been swept over by the heavenly sword picture instantly occupied two of the balls of light. Could these 4 balls of light have been prepared for the 4 great immortal swords? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with light. He felt a little regretful. Now that there were only the immortal culling sword and immortal slaying sword in the heavenly sword picture, he might not be able to complete the sword embryo. Although Ling Xiao was not very clear about the formation formed by the 4 balls of light, he could feel that they seemed to be the source of the sword embryo's power. As long as the 4 great immortal swords were gathered, they would be able to intertwine with each other's emperor aura, and refine it into the strongest sword will, which would then be integrated into the sword embryo. Although my sky-devouring sword has not become an emperor weapon, I have refined 9 types of emperor weapons. In terms of material, it is already stronger than many emperor weapons. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a bright light, and an ancient sword appeared in his palm. It was the sky-devouring sword that had always been by his side. Over the years, although Ling Xiao had not used the sky-devouring sword much, it had been constantly growing. Ling Xiao had placed it in his primordial spirit to nurture it. Most of the emperor weapons that Ling Xiao had obtained had been refined into the sky-devouring sword. If Ling Xiao were to become an emperor in the future, the sky-devouring sword would definitely become an emperor weapon. Buzz. As light flashed in Ling Xiao's palm, the sky-devouring sword instantly unleashed a vast sword will and occupied the 3rd ball of light. Rumble. The 3 balls of light were occupied, and that supreme sword intent grew increasingly terrifying, boundless and incomparably vast. The flames of primordial chaos burned even more wildly. Only the last sword was left. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Although he had some extreme Dao emperor weapons and extreme Dao metals with him, they did not contain extreme Dao sword intent. Hence, they could not complete the sword formation. Could it be that it could only be damaged like this? Clang. At that moment, there was a sharp sword cry from Ling Xiao's body. Boundless radiance bloomed, and the sword will rose. It was vast and unparalleled. A sword rushed out of Ling Xiao's inner world and flew into the 4th ball of light. This is the Dark Heaven sword? Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat, and there was a trace of disbelief in his eyes. Why would the Dark Heaven sword fly into the 4th ball of light? Could it be because of the Dark Heaven Immortal Lord? However, Ling Xiao realized that the Dark Heaven Immortal Lord was still cultivating as if he did not notice the departure of the Dark Heaven sword. Most importantly, Ling Xiao sensed a terrifying sword will that could destroy everything from the Dark Heaven sword. It vaguely formed a strong resonance with the immortal slaying sword and the immortal culling sword. This is not the Dark Heaven sword, this is the celestial slashing sword. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes were filled with shock. He finally understood. The Dark Heaven sword, an emperor weapon, was one of the 4 great celestial swords, the celestial slashing sword. However, for some unknown reason, the celestial slashing sword had fallen into the hands of the Dark Heaven Immortal Lord. Moreover, the celestial slashing sword was nourished by the Dark Heaven sword will of the Dark Heaven Immortal Lord, and concealed its original appearance. Therefore, after sensing the aura of the heavenly sword drawing and the power of the immortal culling sword and the immortal culling sword, the celestial slashing sword flew out of Ling Xiao's small world, and merged into the 4th ball of light. Rumble. The 4 bright balls of light converged, and in an instant, a terrifying aura burst out and engulfed the celestial slashing sword. It came out. The chaotic flame surged and emitted an aura fluctuation that made Ling Xiao's heart palpitate. In an instant, it enveloped the 4 powerful divine swords. The 4 powerful sword wills shot up into the sky and seemed to have a wonderful fusion with each other. Then they converged into the sword embryo. The sword embryo is about to become a sword. Ling Xiao's eyes lit up and revealed a look of great anticipation. P.S. I'm still out on a business trip today, so I wrote a short update. There will be a 3rd update tomorrow, so everyone should rest early. Chapter 3051. Rumble. The sword embryo gave off a dazzling glow and a vast sword intent rose. It became sharper and sharper. The sword intent made one's scalp go numb, and one would shiver at a glance. Ling Xiao could feel that the 4 swords in the 4 balls of light were like rivers flowing into the sea. Powerful energy was constantly pouring into the sword embryo. The connection between the sword embryo and Ling Xiao was getting closer and closer. It was as though he could soar into the sky with just a thought. The sword embryo had reached the most critical moment. Ling Xiao's eyes were shining brightly. He looked at the chaotic flames that lingered in the sky and engulfed the sword embryo and the 4 ancient swords. It was the final refinement. Is this the power of the heavenly sword drawing? Perhaps only the heavenly sword drawing can refine the 4 great celestial swords. Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. The 4 resplendent balls of light seemed to contain an indescribable power. They were able to stimulate the sharpness and origin of the 4 swords, allowing their sword intents to gather together before fusing into the sword embryos. Only the heavenly sword drawing, which gave birth to the 4 great celestial swords, could have such power. Ling Xiao was waiting for the sword embryo to be refined. He had a premonition that there would be an unimaginable scene at the moment the sword embryo was refined. The sword intent in the 4 swords was getting weaker and weaker, while the sword intent in the sword embryo was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, the 4 swords were burning. Rumble. The chaotic flames burned everything. Under the support of the heavenly sword drawing's supreme power, the 4 swords turned into 4 bright flowing lights and flew rapidly towards the sword embryo. The 4 swords, other than the sky-devouring sword, were all supreme emperor weapons. The sky-devouring sword had merged with the 9 supreme metals, and it contained the devouring origin. It was mysterious and its potential was not inferior to the other 3 celestial swords. When the 4 swords merged with the sword embryo shone brightly. With a thought from Ling Xiao, the sword embryo instantly followed his will, and turned into a simple and exuberant sword. Its entire body was surrounded by 9 colored rays of light. Vast sword intent surged, and its sharpness was unparalleled. It seemed to be able to cut through everything, causing the surrounding space to buzz and tremble. Crack. At this moment, endless lightning surged within the chaos. A vast heavenly might descended, shrouding the ancient sword in an instant. Streaks of chaotic thunderbolts fell and locked onto the ancient sword. Thunderbolts shot out like a vast ocean, and collided with the ancient sword. Cries of swords erupted and reverberated through the void. That vast lightning was incomparably terrifying, causing Ling Xiao's heart to palpitate endlessly. In particular, the twisted black thunderbolts contained the purest power of destruction, as if they could annihilate all life. This was a sword tribulation. Tribulation of sword formation. Mysterious scenes of thousands of worlds appeared around the ancient sword. Endless sword chi rose from each of the worlds, and they trembled as if they were worshipping the emperor of the sword. 4 powerful ancient swords fused into the sword embryo, and finally refined into a peerless divine sword. This is the new heaven-devouring sword. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He leaped into the air and grabbed the ancient sword. Suddenly, a feeling of blood connection welled up in his heart. The sword seemed to have become a part of Ling Xiao's body. He could feel the terrifying and vast sword essence within the ancient sword. Ling Xiao felt as if he could unleash all the power of the sword at will. Heaven-devouring sword. This was the sword that had accompanied Ling Xiao since his rebirth. It had a special meaning to him. Despite the fusion of the fairy-slaying sword, fairy-culling sword, and celestial slashing sword, Ling Xiao still called it the heaven-devouring sword. Rumble. A vast and unparalleled power erupted from Ling Xiao's body. The heaven-devouring sword shone brightly in an instant, and 9 colored divine clouds lingered around it. Instantly, a vast devouring vortex appeared around the heaven-devouring sword. The surrounding chaotic thunderbolts, as well as the chaotic light and origin energy, were instantly devoured by the heaven-devouring sword like a whale swallowing the sea. The new heaven-devouring sword not only possessed the peerless killing power of the fairy-slaying sword, fairy-culling sword, and celestial slashing sword, but also possessed the supreme devouring origin energy. This was a sword with limitless potential. From now on, the heaven-devouring sword would be able to devour billions of sword essences in the world to enhance itself. It would become more and more terrifying. At the same time, Ling Xiao felt a strange connection between the heaven-devouring sword and the heavenly sword diagram. It seemed to possess the power of the 4 great celestial swords. He could use the heavenly sword diagram to set up a peerless killing sword formation and destroy everything. Buzz. The heaven-devouring sword vibrated slightly. It possessed endless spirituality. Ling Xiao could sense that there was a bright light flickering in the heaven-devouring sword. It vaguely seemed to form a mysterious shadow. Although the shadow was not solid and was somewhat illusory, its face was very similar to Ling Xiao's. It could communicate with Ling Xiao mentally. That was the weapon spirit of the heaven-devouring sword. The heaven-devouring sword had nurtured a true weapon spirit. If Ling Xiao could become an emperor in the future, the weapon spirit of the heaven-devouring sword would also become more and more powerful. I don't know where the heavenly emperor found this sword embryo. It seems to be a natural treasure that can integrate the power of the 4 great celestial swords. Now, with the heaven-devouring sword in hand, I can unleash a power stronger than the immortal culling sword. Ling Xiao thought to himself as he held the heaven-devouring sword. His aura soared and his eyes were sharp. With the heaven-devouring sword in hand, Ling Xiao felt as if there was an endless power in his body. It allowed him to annihilate everything and cut through the void with a wave of his hand. There was a majestic torrent of information in the heaven-devouring sword that poured into Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. The great immortal execution art, great immortal culling art, great immortal trapping art, and great immortal annihilation art. The 4 great celestial techniques were not only contained in the 4 swords, but also in the heavenly sword diagram. At the same time, there was also a supreme sword formation that was known as the best in all heavens. The 4 great celestial techniques poured into Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. He quickly comprehended and absorbed them. The heart of the sword used the great immortal execution art and the great immortal trapping art as the foundation to create the sword Dao fruit. Now the sword Dao fruit is my 16th Dao fruit. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. The primordial spirit of the sword heart saint was suppressed by him. With a thought, he instantly separated the sword Dao fruit from the primordial spirit of the sword heart saint. Ordinary people would not be able to integrate so many Dao fruits as it would conflict with their own great Dao. A Dao fruit was a great Dao fruit. It was similar to a sage's Dao fruit, but completely different. A sage's Dao fruit was a simple law of heaven and earth, while a divine lord's Dao fruit contained a complete great Dao origin. It was because Ling Xiao had the heaven-devouring secret skill, the wordless heavenly book, and the creation jade disc that he could refine so many Dao fruits. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3052. Rumble. As he used the devouring heaven secret skill, the devouring heaven origin quickly enveloped the sword Dao fruit and erased the sword heart saint's imprint. Then it slowly merged into Ling Xiao's primordial spirit. As Ling Xiao refined the sword Dao fruit, the sword heart saint's lifetime understanding of the sword Dao also merged into Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. Ling Xiao's understanding of the 4 great immortal skills began to improve rapidly and soon reached the complete realm. Ling Xiao's understanding of the sword Dao had also reached a very profound level. He had mastered all kinds of sword techniques. It was as if he had become a rare genius of the sword Dao. Every move he made could explode with the strongest sword Dao radiance. Phew! Ling Xiao opened his eyes and slowly exhaled. Like a sword radiance, the sword radiance shot into the distance. The sword radiance was extremely sharp. Although his cultivation did not increase, Ling Xiao felt that his battle prowess had increased by leaps and bounds. Now, if the sword heart saint stood in front of him, Ling Xiao was confident that he could defeat the Sword Heart Saint within 3 moves. Sword cultivation is indeed the strongest great Tao. Ling Xiao sighed with emotion as he thought to himself. Whoosh! The devouring heaven sword flew into Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit, like a shooting star to be nourished. If I get the trapping immortal sword in the future, it can be devoured by the devouring heaven sword, and become a part of it. Only then can the devouring heaven sword be considered complete. Ling Xiao muttered to himself. The trapping immortal sword should be in the hands of Ning Wuji, the sect master of heaven connecting immortal sect. If he wanted to get the immortal culling sword, he would have to defeat Ning Wuji. Ling Xiao did not have much hope for now. However, he believed that one day, he would be able to get the immortal culling sword from Ning Wuji. Now, it's time to count my biggest spoils of war. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly, revealing a look of great anticipation. Crack! He opened the small world in the Sword Heart Primordial Spirit, which was also the storage space of the Sword Heart. In the small world, sword essence surged with unparalleled sharpness. It contained many heavenly treasures, spiritual elixirs, and some powerful Sword Dao immortal weapons. However, Ling Xiao did not care about most of them. All of Ling Xiao's attention was completely drawn by the Divine Cauldron fragments. There were a total of 32 fragments of the Godly Cauldron. They floated in the void and shone brightly. Ling Xiao extended his hand and made a grabbing motion. Immediately, the 32 fragments of the Divine Cauldron flew into his palm. Whoosh! Ling Xiao's other hand took out another 67 fragments of the Divine Cauldron from his small world. These were the fragments that the 6 great sects had collected over the years, including the Divine Cauldron fragments that Ling Xiao had obtained from the Immortal Stone. Rumble! A total of 99 fragments of the cauldron appeared before Ling Xiao. They hovered in the air and shone with resplendent light. They formed an extremely mysterious attractive force between each other. There are 99 fragments of the cauldron, and there are still 9 fragments that we haven't heard of. Either they haven't been discovered, or they have fallen into the hands of the eternal celestial dynasty. A divine light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes as he thought to himself. After all, although the Divine Cauldron fragments were very precious, they were useless to ordinary people. Therefore, once the Divine Cauldron fragments were discovered, they would be sold and quickly fall into the hands of the 6 great divine sects and the 9 great immortal sects. Over countless years, all the fragments of the Divine Cauldron that had been collected were here. The 99 fragments of the Divine Cauldron were already the majority of the Cauldron of Creation. Although there are still 9 fragments of the Divine Cauldron missing, perhaps I can already form the real Cauldron of Creation. Ling Xiao muttered to himself. The space between his eyebrows shone brightly, and the Divine Clan mark appeared once again. Boom! The Divine Clan mark shone brightly, and spewed out a dazzling Divine Clan fate energy. Instantly, it enveloped the 99 fragments of the Divine Cauldron. When the Divine Clan fate energy came into contact with the fragments of the Divine Cauldron, it seemed to have been ignited and started to burn fiercely. The flames rose and filled with 9-colored light. It was extremely mysterious. The 99 fragments of the Divine Cauldron also shone with resplendent divine light. There were strange lines that circled around each other. Then they rapidly approached each other and merged into one. The blazing divine light was like a storm that enveloped all the fragments of the Divine Cauldron. The flames burned fiercely. What burned was the Divine Clan's fate energy, but what remained was the Divine Clan's hope. Ling Xiao could feel that the chaotic divine bone in front of his chest seemed to resonate with it. The fragments of the Divine Cauldron in front of him gave him a feeling that they were connected by blood. In the end, the 99 fragments of the Divine Cauldron formed a 3-legged, 2-eared cauldron in front of Ling Xiao. It was bronze in color and looked ancient. However, it was surrounded by 9-colored divine light. It seemed to contain the mystery of the origin of the Divine Clan. Is this the Cauldron of Creation? Ling Xiao's eyes were bright and resplendent. Although the ancient cauldron in front of him still looked a little damaged and 9 fragments of the cauldron were missing, it had already revealed its extraordinariness. The Cauldron of Creation was the treasure of the Divine Clan's fate energy. Ling Xiao could vaguely see the sun, moon, and stars on the Cauldron of Creation. There were all living things in the universe. There were the ancient gods and demons. There were even the mysterious figures of the 12 ancestor gods. The aura that the cauldron of creation gave off was of the same origin as the divine clan mark. It made Ling Xiao's blood boil. The chaotic divine bone in front of his chest shone brightly. Chaotic mist spread out, causing the cauldron of creation to hum. It seemed to be nurturing a mysterious power. Ling Xiao could feel that if he could gather the last 9 fragments of the divine cauldron and complete the cauldron of creation, it would definitely have an unimaginable impact on the entire divine clan. The divine clan mark and the cauldron of creation. No wonder they are known as the treasures of fate energy of the divine clan. Perhaps these 2 treasures are inextricably linked to the origin of the divine clan. If the cauldron of creation is complete, then with the power of the divine clan mark, it will definitely be able to break through the bloodline shackles of the divine clan. All the descendants of the divine clan will become true divine clan members. Ling Xiao exclaimed inwardly. His eyes were extremely bright. From his experience in the Hall of Gods, as well as breaking the bloodline shackles of Zhan Chun, Wu Hen, and the others, Ling Xiao could see the immense potential in them. No wonder the divine clan was known as the overlords of the universe in the ancient times. Even the immortal clan was only a servant of the divine clan. The god race was indeed a powerful race blessed by the heavens and favored by the heavens. Ling Xiao was now the son of God. He was revered by countless members of the divine clan. If he could break the bloodline shackles of all the descendants of the divine clan, then Ling Xiao's prestige would reach an unparalleled level. He would be comparable to the 12 ancestral gods. When that time came, Ling Xiao would be the true leader of the divine clan. Only the divine clan can compete with the immortal clan. Now that I am also a member of the divine clan, I must grasp this powerful force tightly. Ling Xiao thought to himself. With a wave of his hand, he immediately put away the cauldron of creation. Together with the divine clan mark, he stored it in his sea of consciousness. He would use his indestructible primordial spirit to nourish it. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3053. Outside the immortal devil cave. Ning Yanji's face was pale. The killing intent in his eyes was surging with endless anger. It was extremely terrifying. The immortal extermination sword had lost its connection, which meant that the immortal extermination sword had fallen into Lei Ling's hands. What shocked Ning Yanji the most was that the immortal culling sword in his hand seemed to have lost its sharpness, and its vitality had been greatly damaged. All of this came from Lei Ling, from the heavenly sword diagram. The heavenly sword diagram fell into Lei Ling's hands. Lei Ling also had the Kill Immortal sword and the Kill Immortal sword. Ning Yanji didn't know that even the Extinguish Immortal sword had fallen into Lei Ling's hands. However, he instinctively felt that something had gone out of control. Whether it was to take back the Celestial Slaying Sword, the Immortal Slaughtering Sword, the Heavenly Sword diagram, or to kill Ling Xiao to avenge Jianxin, Lei Ling had to die. Within the Immortal Devil Cave. Because of the battle between Ling Xiao and Jianxin, the experts of the Immortal Clan from the 9 immortal sects were all fearful of Ling Xiao. In the past, the 6 divine sects were in a disadvantageous position. They were the ones who hunted down the divine race. Even if they entered the immortal demon grotto, there wasn't much danger. When did the Protoss change their identity and become hunters? Taiyuan stepped forward. As the strongest among the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects, Taiyuan's cultivation base had already reached the 5th heaven of the immortal Duke realm. His strength was unparalleled, and he even wielded the Tai immortal sect's extreme Dao Emperor weapon. As soon as he appeared, the disciples of the 9 great immortal sects seemed to have found their backbone and gathered around Taiyuan. Everyone from the god race should die. All of you will hunt down the divine race disciples. I will wait here for Lei Ling to appear. I want to see if he dares to show himself. As long as he dares to appear, he will definitely die. Taiyuan's eyes flashed like lightning, and his voice was extremely cold. All the disciples of the immortal clan began to get excited. As long as Lei Ling was not around, the power of the immortals still had an overwhelming advantage. The powerful cultivators of the 6 great god tribes were no match for them. Under Taiyuan's orders, all the disciples of the 9 sects gathered and began to hunt down the disciples of the 6 divine sections. Even the princes and princesses of the 9 major sects obeyed Taiyuan's orders. Under the immense pressure brought about by Ling Xiao, the 9 great immortal sects joined forces and began a bloody revenge against the divine race. As a result, the disciples of the 6 divine sects began to suffer. There were only 36 disciples left in the ancient god cult. They had become the 36 divine generals under Ling Xiao and were cultivating in seclusion. The other disciples of the divine sect were caught off guard. In particular, many of them hadn't even finished gathering. When the lone Protoss were caught, they were all killed by the immortals. Even the disciples of the divine sect who had gathered together suffered heavy casualties due to the absence of Ling Xiao and the fact that they had no backbone to back them up. After Ling Xiao helped Zhang Chun, Wu Hen, and the others break free from their bloodline shackles, their cultivation base skyrocketed, and their battle prowess increased tremendously. However, they were still no match for the holy sons and holy daughters of the 9 immortal sections. Not to mention that Taiyuan was in charge. They were naturally no match for Taiyuan. Under the lead of Zhang Chun, Wu Hen, and the others, there were only a few hundred people left from the 6 great divine sects. They hid in a world of ruins. Meanwhile, the people from the 9 great immortal sects had completely surrounded them. Brother Taiyuan, should we make a move and wipe them all out? Dongfeng Bai's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he spoke slowly. He had now completely surrendered to the Taiyuan saint. Previously, when the 4 holy sons surrounded Ling Xiao killed Ren Tianjue and Wu Xingchen instead. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. The deeper the fear in his heart, the deeper the hatred he had for Ling Xiao. Therefore, he vented all his hatred on the disciples of the 6 divine sects. He spared no effort in hunting down the people of the 6 divine sects. Not for now. Don't you think they're good bait? The Taiyuan saint's eyes flashed as he smiled faintly. Bait? Brother Taiyuan wants to use them to lure Lei Ling here? However, Lei Ling just killed the Sword Heart Saint. Dongfeng Bai was shocked and said worriedly. After witnessing the battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint, he had a clearer understanding of Ling Xiao's strength. Although the Taiyuan saint was a 5th heaven immortal lord, Dongfeng Bai didn't think that he would be able to kill Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was too strange. What? Do you think I'm no match for Lei Ling? The Taiyuan saint glanced at Dongfeng Bai indifferently. Of course not. Taiyuan saint is a genius. Lei Ling is definitely no match for you, but we have to be careful. Lei Ling is cunning. If he saves these people, we'll be in big trouble. Dongfeng Bai said with a bitter smile. Save them? It's not that easy. This time, not only will I kill everyone from the divine clan, but I'll also bury Lei Ling here. The Taiyuan saint sneered. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. The battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint had shocked Taiyuan saint and made him wary of Ling Xiao, especially when he saw that the heavenly sword diagram had fallen into Ling Xiao's hands. It made him go crazy with jealousy. He had appeared and summoned the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects to hunt down the people of the 6 major divine sects for this moment. He wanted to force the people of the 6 major divine sects to gather together and form an encirclement, waiting for Ling Xiao to come to their rescue. He had prepared a surprise gift for Ling Xiao, and he also believed that this time he would be able to kill Ling Xiao completely. The people of the divine clan in the relic world had planned to fight to the death, but they were puzzled when they realized that the experts of the divine clan did not attack. Strange, why aren't the 9 major immortal sects attacking? This relic world is not protected by a powerful formation. It's easy for them to kill their way in. Someone asked, puzzled. I'm afraid they want to use us as bait to lure Lord God's favorite child. Zhang Chen thought for a moment and sneered. What? They want to harm Lord God's favorite child? The experts of the divine clan were shocked and angry, their eyes filled with disbelief. Aren't these people of the divine clan too shameless? If they have the ability, they should have a fair fight with Lord God's favorite child. If they don't dare to fight Lord God's favorite child, they set a trap here. How despicable. Let's kill our way out. Saint Zhang Chen, we can't let Lord God's favorite child be in danger. That's right, we'll fight it out with them. The people of the divine clan shouted with righteous indignation, their eyes filled with anger and killing intent. There were only about 100 people left from the 6 major divine sects. The battle over the past few days had been extremely tragic, and most of the disciples had died under the siege of the divine clan. Therefore they hated the people of the 9 major immortal sects to the core. Chapter 30-55. The Immortal Demon Conference was even more tragic than before. Only a dozen days had passed and 80% of the deity clan had fallen. Only 100 or so people were barely hanging on. Moreover, these 100 or so people were besieged by the 9 immortal sects, and were in danger of being wiped out at any time. As for the 9 immortal sects, although many of them had died, there were still more than 300 of them left. Together with the Taiyuan saint, Dongfangbai, Feng Qingxue, and other saints and saintesses, they formed an extremely powerful force. However, the deity clan and the immortal clan had reached an extremely delicate balance, and did not immediately start a war. Everyone from the deity clan was trapped in a relic world. This was a trap set by the immortal clan, or rather, an open and aboveboard conspiracy. They were waiting for Ling Xiao to fall into the trap. At this moment, the Taiyuan saint did not know that Ling Xiao had been observing here for a long time. Ling Xiao had refined the heavenly sword diagram and the new sky-swallowing sword in a shorter time than they had expected. After Ling Xiao came out of the heavenly sword diagram, he had wanted to lead the 36 immortal generals and kill all the immortal clan. However, he did not expect the 9 immortal sects to be one step ahead of him and besiege all the deity clan members. The 9 immortal sects? Looks like you're really courting death. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. He had seen many corpses of the deity clan members along the way, and could sense that they had suffered heavy casualties. However, the immortal clan had not lost their foundation, and there were still more than 300 of them. Each of them was filled with killing intent, and their eyes were cold as if they were waiting for something. Ling Xiao knew that they were all waiting for him to appear. Ahem, Master Lei Ling, if you want to save the people from the 6 immortal sects, perhaps you can use me in exchange. My brother loves me the most, and he will definitely let those deity clan members go. Tai Xian could feel Ling Xiao's killing intent, and could not help but shrink his head and cough dryly. Use you in exchange? Do you really think your brother will care about your life? Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Of course. Our family only has 2 sons, just me and my elder brother. The 2 of us brothers have a very deep relationship. Even if you want my big brother's extreme Dao Emperor weapon, my big brother will give it to you. Let alone hundreds of God race experts. Tai Xian smiled proudly, full of confidence. What a silly child. Ling Xiao looked at Tai Xian with pity. Even though this fella's brain wasn't too good, his talent was extraordinary. Especially his attainments in the path of formations. It was incomparably stunning. It reminded Ling Xiao of the old goat. But this guy was incomparably childish. Ling Xiao could feel that Tai Xian was not a bad person. He was just a spoiled child. Today, I'll teach him what it means to be evil. All divine generals heed my command. Ling Xiao glanced at the 36 divine generals behind him, and said with an indifferent expression, Here, under Tung Shan's lead, the 36 godly generals knelt on one knee in front of Ling Xiao. Their eyes were filled with passion. Follow me and slaughter the people from the 9 great immortal sections. Let's rescue your comrades. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Yes. The 36 divine generals roared in response. Divine light shone in their eyes. The aura that had been suppressed suddenly erupted and shot up into the sky. Each of their eyes was filled with strong fighting spirit and killing intent. It was as if Lei Ling's words could kill them. They were indeed suppressing their anger. They could not wait to rush down and kill all the people from the 9 great immortal sections. Who's there? Ling Xiao and the 36 divine generals no longer suppressed their aura. They were immediately noticed by the people from the 9 great immortal sections. Dongfangbai's eyes flashed with a cold light as he shouted coldly, Rumble! Ling Xiao instantly leaped into the sky. His body was surrounded by blazing divine light. His eyes were filled with indifference. His aura was vast and unparalleled, causing the surrounding void to tremble. Taiyuan, didn't you want to look for me? I'm already here. Ling Xiao said indifferently. His voice was like thunder, shaking the surroundings. Behind him, the auras of the 36 divine generals seemed to have gathered together, turning into a vast smoke signal. It was extremely terrifying. These 36 divine generals were all at the Imperial Emperor realm. Moreover, Ling Xiao had unlocked their bloodline shackles, causing their bloodlines to be pure and their auras to condense. Their entire body seemed to be one. Their strength seemed to be able to connect with each other, forming a military formation that was incomparably terrifying. With the current might of the 36 divine generals, even a second heaven imperial monarch would be instantly torn into pieces if he were to trespass here. Lei Ling. Dongfangbai's body trembled. His eyes were filled with resentment. The 4 holy sons and holy daughters had besieged Ling Xiao. Not only had they failed to kill him, but Wu Xingqian and Ren Tianjue had also been killed by him. This made Dongfangbai feel extremely humiliated. Lei Ling? You really dare to come? Tai Yuan's eyes were sharp and bright as he said indifferently. They had surrounded the people from the 6 great immortal sects, but did not attack. It was an overt plot to force Ling Xiao to show himself. Even a fool would know that there was a trap here. But Ling Xiao still came. I'm here. Tai Yuan, let the disciples of the 6 great immortal sects go. How about we fight fair and square? Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. His gaze fell on Tai Yuan, and his eyes were extremely sharp. Boom. Their gazes collided in the void. It was as if their gazes had materialized and burst out with dazzling light, causing the void to tremble slightly. Big brother, save me. Tai Yuan stood beside Ling Xiao. When he saw Tai Yuan, his eyes were filled with joy and he could not help but shout out loud. Tai Xian. Tai Yuan frowned. He had also noticed Tai Xian beside Ling Xiao, and suddenly felt that things were getting a little tricky. Tai Xian's cultivation had been sealed by Ling Xiao, and he had become Ling Xiao's prisoner. Lei Ling, let go of my brother. Otherwise, all of your divine race's people will die without a burial ground. Tai Yuan stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly, killing intent surging in his eyes. Tai Yuan, I've said it before. Why don't you let the disciples of the 6 great immortal sects go? And I'll let your brother go. Then we'll have a fair fight. What do you think? Ling Xiao said with a smile and then repeated his words. His eyes were full of interest. He wanted to know what Tai Yuan's choice would be. The people from the 9 major immortal sects also looked at Tai Yuan with different expressions. Tai Yuan was extremely conflicted. That was his biological brother. How could he not save him? However, he was unwilling to let go of the disciples of the 6 great immortal sections. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3056. Tai Yuan had expended a great deal of effort and cost to set up this inescapable trap. His goal was to trap Ling Xiao. If he released the disciples of the 6 divine sects, Ling Xiao would take them away and his efforts would be in vain. Especially after seeing the battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint, Tai Yuan's fear of Ling Xiao reached its peak. Although he did not want to admit it, he had to admit that he might not be Ling Xiao's match. Based on Ling Xiao's killing intent and decisiveness, if he did not have the disciples of the 6 divine sects, he would not let the people of the 9 immortal sects go. At that time, the 9 immortal sects would most likely be wiped out, including him. Thinking of this, Tai Yuan trembled. He clenched his teeth and stared at Ling Xiao. Lei Ling, you want me to release the disciples of the 6 divine sects? Impossible. You killed Jianxin, Wu Xingqian and Ren Tianjue, the supreme talents of the immortal tribe. Today, I will avenge them and kill all of the people of the 6 divine sects. Then, Tai Yuan looked at Tai Xian guiltily and said, Tai Xian, forgive me. I can't be so selfish. For the safety of the 9 immortal sects and the future of the immortal tribe, Lei Ling must die. Don't worry, if he dares to kill you, I will tear him into pieces to avenge you. Tai Xian was stunned. Brother, are you really not going to save me? The disciples of the 6 divine sects are no threat. Lei Ling is no match for you. Are you really not going to fight him fair and square? Tai Xian's voice was trembling. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. His closest brother was unwilling to save him? Nonsense. Tai Xian, you don't understand. Lei Ling is no match for me, but for the sake of the big picture, we can't release the disciples of the 6 divine sects. Tai Yuan said angrily. He could only harden his heart, and did not even dare to look into Tai Xian's eyes. TSK. What a touching scene of putting righteousness before family. Tai Xian, did you see that? Your brother would rather sacrifice you than release the disciples of the 6 divine sects for the safety of the immortal tribe. Shouldn't you feel relieved? So don't blame your brother. He has no choice. Ling Xiao said with a chuckle, but the sarcasm in his voice was clear to everyone. Lei Ling, you deserve to die. A terrifying killing intent erupted from Tai Yuan. His eyes flashed with cold light as he stared at Ling Xiao and enunciated each and every word. He really hated Ling Xiao to the core. Especially when he saw Tai Yuan's despondent look, he wanted nothing more than to tear Ling Xiao into pieces. He could feel that the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects were looking at him with strange gazes. Tai Yuan, don't be so bitter. Ling Zhao's sword saint is of the immortal will of the heavens. You're already afraid in your heart, and have lost the will to fight. You don't dare to fight me, so you can only use tricks to deal with me? Ling Xiao sighed and shook his head. What a joke. I am Tai Yuan, the saint and young sect master of the Tai immortal sect. In the future, I will conquer the eternal emperor road, and become a supreme immortal emperor. Who do you think you are, Lei Ling? Tai Yuan sneered in anger. You know very well whether I'm afraid or not. But now that things have come to this, wouldn't it be a waste of your good intentions if I don't fall into your trap? Come, Tai Yuan, I'm very curious about what you've prepared for me. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and put the despondent Tai Xian into his small world. Then he took a step forward and flew toward Tai Yuan. Boom. His figure was as fast as lightning. He arrived in the blink of an eye, exuding a majestic aura as he threw a punch at Tai Yuan. The fist aura was unparalleled, and contained unparalleled fist intent. It pressed down like a vast divine mountain, and enveloped Tai Yuan. Boom. As expected, Tai Yuan seemed to have forgotten to dodge, and was blown up by Ling Zhao's punch. A scapegoat? You've really put in a lot of effort to get me into your trap. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He didn't even look at Tai Yuan, who had been blown up by him. That wasn't Tai Yuan's real body. Boom. Suddenly, the surrounding void shattered, and a terrifying aura spread out. Endless immortal light gathered, and a huge immortal pagoda appeared above Ling Zhao's head. The immortal pagoda radiated immortal light, as if it had come from the beginning of time. It was ancient and mysterious, containing a vast and unparalleled power. However, the immortal pagoda looked somewhat illusory and not very real. This is the Longevity Tower? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. That's right, this is the projection of the Longevity Tower. Lei Ling, the Longevity Tower is a supreme chaos treasure of the immortal clan. Although it's just a projection, it can even kill a peerless immortal lord. I'd like to see how you're going to die. Tai Yuan's figure appeared in the sky above Ling Xiao. His eyes were filled with killing intent and deep-rooted hatred. It's the projection of the Longevity Tower? This is bad. Lord God's child is in danger. Inside the historical remnant world, Zhan Chun Wu Hen and the others were also paying attention to everything that was happening outside. When they saw the Longevity Tower appear, they all revealed looks of worry. Kill our way out. Zhan Chun Wu Hen and the others' eyes immediately turned red. Killing intent surged from their bodies as they instantly charged out of the historical remnant world. The Longevity Tower, a flawless chaos treasure. For countless years, the Longevity Tower had sealed off the immortal plane and stabilized the immortal clan's fortune. It had become a famous supreme treasure throughout the universe. Legend had it that the Longevity Tower could kill a great emperor. No one had ever seen the Longevity Tower in action. However, some people had been able to obtain a projection of the Longevity Tower and use it as a life-saving trump card to kill their enemies. The Longevity Tower's projection could indeed kill a peerless immortal lord. The Longevity Tower's projection was a life-saving trump card that Tai Yuan had paid a great price to obtain. But now for Lei Ling, he was hesitant to use it. Tai Yuan's heart was bleeding, but he had no regrets. His eyes were blazing. As long as Lei Ling is killed, the Heavenly Sword Diagram, the Immortal Slaughtering Sword, and the Immortal Slaying Sword will all be mine. Although the longevity tower's projection is damaged, it's worth it. The moment he saw the heavenly sword diagram, his heart was filled with endless greed. Unfortunately, the longevity tower's projection was too rigid. It was a direct projection of the longevity tower's power, and was not under Tai Yuan's control. Otherwise, Tai Yuan would have gone to save Tai Xian. In his opinion, killing Lei Ling was the most important thing. For that, he was even willing to sacrifice his own brother. P.S. To make up for yesterday's 2 updates, there are 2 more updates tonight. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3057. Rumble. The longevity tower's projection pressed down mightily. The ancient immortal pagoda shone brightly in the immortal demon cave like an eternal immemorial divine mountain. That majestic aura made everyone's heart tremble. Under the longevity tower, Ling Xiao's entire body seemed to have been shackled. There was no room for him to move. Blazing immortal light surged and drowned Ling Xiao in an instant. Tai Yuan stood atop the longevity tower's projection, his body shrouded in blazing immortal light. His eyes were like lightning, sharp and unparalleled. All of his attention was focused on Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao posed a great threat to Tai Yuan. Only when Ling Xiao was completely killed would he be able to relax. Kill. Avenge the god's child. Zhan Chun, Wu Hen, and the others couldn't hold back any longer. Eyes blazing with killing intent, they charged out. They seemed to have gone mad. Terrifying killing intent surged around them, and their eyes were bloodshot as they pounced on the people from the 9 immortal sections. Kill. The 36 divine generals roared and joined the battle. The disciples of the 9 immortal sects were not to be outdone. Led by Dongfang Bai, Fang Qingxue, and the other saints and saintesses, they charged forward to meet the enemy. Kill everyone from the 6 immortal sects. Tai Yuan's cold voice exploded in the void like thunder. In his opinion, this was a meaningless massacre. The 300 disciples of the 9 immortal sects were far more powerful than the 6 immortal sections. After this battle, the disciples of the 6 immortal sects would be completely wiped out. Rumble. The most intense battle between the god and immortal tribes broke out in an instant. Everyone seemed to have gone mad. They used their most powerful divine abilities and immortal arts. Violent collisions broke out, each blow erupting with the force of a tsunami. Immortal and god experts were constantly sent flying while coughing up blood. Then they were killed by powerful divine abilities and immortal arts. Their souls were completely scattered, and they died. Like 2 torrents crashing into each other, a large number of casualties occurred in an instant. Lei Ling should be dead by now, right? Tai Yuan thought as his eyes glinted with a sharp light. The projection of the longevity tower was seemingly capable of suppressing the 9 heavens and 10 earths. When it landed on the ground, it caused the ground to shake violently and unfathomably deep abysses appeared. Inside the longevity tower, there was an immortal light of devastation, a 9-colored immortal lotus flame, and a supremely mighty power capable of suppressing everything. He refused to believe that Ling Xiao could survive the suppression of the longevity tower. Even if Ling Xiao had the heavenly sword diagram, he could not do it. Rumble. Suddenly, the longevity tower shook violently. Although the projection of the longevity tower was somewhat illusory, it was the real longevity tower's vast and mighty power. It contained the power of primordial chaos and the mysterious scenes of the myriad worlds. The sun, the moon and the stars appeared before shining with a brilliant light. At that very moment, however, the interior of the longevity tower had seemingly transformed into a primordial beast to violently clash against the projection of the longevity tower. What? Tai Yuan's expression changed slightly. He had a bad feeling. Crack. The longevity tower shook violently. In the end, cracks spread out across the surface of the longevity tower, and an endless stream of blazing light sprayed out from the cracks. Wang. A strange buzzing sound rang out. It was clear and ancient, and seemed to spread across the myriad worlds in an instant. It erupted with a peerless power. The projection of the longevity tower abruptly burst apart. Boundless divine light dazzled everyone's eyes and primordial mist gushed out. A huge bronze cauldron with 3 legs and 2 handles appeared before everyone. It was ancient and mysterious, like a divine mountain. The bronze cauldron spewed out boundless divine light. The ancient and mysterious power was in no way weaker than the longevity tower's projection. Ling Xiao stood at the top of the bronze cauldron, his clothes fluttering in the wind. His aura was incomparably sharp, and his eyes were filled with incomparably resplendent light. The bronze cauldron beneath his feet was none other than the cauldron of creation. The longevity tower's projection posed an incomparably great threat to Ling Xiao. It even made him feel as if death was approaching. The boundless power was incomparably domineering. It was as if even an extreme emperor's aura was shackled by it. This was the power of a chaos supreme treasure, the only one in the myriad worlds that could suppress the fortunes of the immortal clan. It was incomparably terrifying. As for the cauldron of creation in Ling Xiao's spiritual sea, it seemed to have sensed the longevity tower's aura and instantly erupted. Like a duel between fated enemies, the cauldron of creation appeared out of nowhere and clashed with the longevity tower's projection. In the end, the longevity tower's projection was completely shattered. This is the cauldron of creation? Taiyuan's body trembled, and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he exclaimed. He never thought that this would be the result. The bronze cauldron before him was very similar to the divine clan's legendary supreme treasure, the cauldron of creation. However, it was said that the cauldron of creation had long been shattered. Now, only fragments of the divine cauldron remained. It was extremely difficult to gather all the fragments, let alone restore the real cauldron of creation. How did Lei Ling do it? What Taiyuan thought was a sure kill attack had been neutralized by Ling Xiao's cauldron of creation. He found it hard to accept. Taiyuan, is your trump card the longevity tower's projection? You really disappoint me. In that case, take my sword as well. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Clang. Boundless sword intent erupted from his body. A peerless sword blossomed with dazzling divine light, as it appeared out of nowhere. The heaven-devouring sword. With the heaven-devouring sword in hand, Ling Xiao's aura became extremely sharp. In an instant, the heaven-devouring sword soared through the air and slashed down at Taiyuan. Lei Ling, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Taiyuan was so angry that he laughed, his eyes filled with ferocious killing intent. In the face of Ling Xiao's sword he did not dodge. Instead, his palm glowed with dazzling light. In an instant, a 9-story pagoda surrounded by dazzling immortal light, as though yin and yang were intertwined, shot toward Ling Xiao. The Prime Pagoda. The Prime Emperor weapon of the Prime Immortal Sect. According to legend, it was forged by Immortal Emperor Tai Yi of the Immortal Clan using the Longevity Tower as a prototype. It was extremely powerful. The Prime Pagoda contained 9 layers of worlds. Once it was unleashed, it was as though 9 layers of worlds were attacking from the sky, capable of suppressing everything. Moreover, the 9 floors of the Prime Pagoda contained 9 layers of prime immortal light that could annihilate everything. At the same time, it could also form a protective immortal light. It was an extremely powerful Prime Emperor weapon with both offense and defense. Clang. Ling Xiao's heaven-devouring sword released millions of dazzling sword lights in the void. It was so sharp that it seemed like it could destroy everything. Zhubi Chinese Network. Chapter 3058. 3 strange sword phantoms appeared around the heaven-devouring sword. The 3 supreme sword intents of the Immortal Slaying Sword, Immortal Slaughtering Sword, and Immortal Ending Sword merged with the heaven-devouring sword to form a 10,000 zhang long astral sword that slashed at the Prime Pagoda. Rumble. The void trembled violently. In an instant, it shattered like a spider web, and dense cracks appeared. Even though the space here was extremely sturdy, it was still somewhat unable to withstand the collision of the 2 supreme treasures. The Prime Pagoda shone with blazing immortal light, but was sent flying by Ling Xiao's sword strike. Ling Xiao's aura was like a dragon as sword energy filled the sky. The heaven-devouring sword diagram spread out and enveloped the entire area. Rumble. Endless sword energy rose and 4 divine swords appeared in the 4 cardinal directions. They were like heavenly pillars that supported the world. As soon as the 4 peerless divine swords appeared, endless sword chi rose and intertwined, turning the void into a domain of swords. So, The cultivators from the 9 great immortal sects who were fighting against the disciples from the 6 great immortal sects had their bodies pierced by the sword energy. Their bodies crumbled and they died. Only a few powerful immortal sect disciples were barely able to hold on. However, it seemed that they would not be able to hold on for much longer. The moment the heaven-devouring sword diagram appeared, no one could fight against it. The disciples from the 9 great immortal sects suffered heavy casualties in an instant. Taiyuan's eyes turned red when he saw that. Lei Ling, you rely on the power of an apex emperor weapon to bully the weak. What kind of ability is that? If you have what it takes, fight me fair and square. Taiyuan roared, his eyes filled with killing intent. What a joke! You wanted to use the Longevity Tower's projection to kill me. Why didn't you say that you relied on the power of a chaos treasure? I once said that you want to fight me but you refused. If that's the case, all of you can die. Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Sword intent rose from his eyes and the aura around him became terrifying to the extreme. The sky was filled with surging sword qi. Ling Xiao attacked with the sky-devouring sword. Every strike was extremely sharp, causing billions of sword lights to appear in the void in an instant. They all slashed toward Taiyuan. Wang. Boundless immortal light blossomed from the Tai Pagoda and floated over Taiyuan's head. Immortal light gathered around him to form a powerful protective barrier. When the sword qi slashed his body, the protective immortal light rippled like ripples. Taiyuan's expression was unsightly, his eyes filled with shock. He could vaguely feel that the current Ling Xiao seemed to have become the saint of the sword heart, possessing unparalleled talent in swordsmanship. Every strike was extremely terrifying. Especially the heaven-swallowing sword in Ling Xiao's hand. It was not the immortal slaying sword or the immortal slaying sword, but each of its strikes contained supreme power, making his Tai Pagoda unable to compete with it. That sword was too terrifying. Taiyuan didn't have a body as freakishly strong as Ling Xiao's. He could sense that he wouldn't have been able to take a single blow from Ling Xiao without the Tai Pagoda's defense. Damn it, how can he be so strong? Taiyuan's expression was unsightly, his eyes filled with disbelief. After watching the battle between Ling Xiao and the Saint of the Sword Heart, he had already overestimated Ling Xiao, but now it seemed that he had still underestimated Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's strength was beyond his imagination. Rumble. Ling Xiao held the heaven-swallowing sword in one hand and the invincible fist seal in the other. He swept across the void with unparalleled sword qi and vast fist seals, constantly attacking Taiyuan. Taiyuan's body shook violently, and the protective immortal light seemed like it would shatter at any time. After all, although the Tai Pagoda was an apex emperor weapon, it consumed all of Taiyuan's strength. Under Ling Xiao's storm-like attacks, even Taiyuan couldn't hold on much longer. Tai God-slaying technique. Taiyuan bellowed. Rumble. Blazing immortal light rose around him, and yin and yang qi gathered between his palms, instantly forming a blazing immortal light. A strand of primordial spirit power flew out from between Taiyuan's eyebrows and merged with the immortal light, forming a god-slaying saber. Taiyuan grunted, his face a little pale, but the god-slaying saber was so sharp that it seemed to have transcended time and space, freezing everything as it slashed toward Ling Xiao. The god-slaying saber contained unparalleled saber intent, as if it could shatter everything. It arrived in front of Ling Xiao's forehead in an instant. Puff. With a flash of blood, the god-slaying saber broke through Ling Xiao's forehead, entered his sea of consciousness, and slashed toward his primordial spirit. Tai God-slaying technique, the supreme immortal technique of the Tai Immortal sect, was rumored to have been created by the Tai Immortal Emperor. It was a mystic technique that could directly slash the indestructible primordial spirit. It was extremely terrifying. However, it was also a forbidden technique. To slay others, one had to slay oneself first. To use the Tai God-slaying technique, one had to first slash part of one's indestructible primordial spirit to form the god-slaying saber. From there, one would be able to unleash an unparalleled divine power. What a powerful attack on the primordial spirit! Ling Xiao couldn't help but exclaim. If he had been hit by the god-slaying saber before condensing his Dao fruit, his indestructible primordial spirit would have been severely injured even with the wordless heavenly book. But now, Ling Zhao's indestructible primordial spirit was surrounded by 16 dazzling Dao fruits. They were like 16 supreme stars, emitting an eternal and mysterious light. When the god-slaying saber was about to hit Ling Zhao's indestructible primordial spirit, it instantly slowed down as if it had been imprisoned by the power of time and space. 16 beams of light shot out from the 16 Dao fruits. Vast Dao wills such as chaos, destiny, karma, and reincarnation rose. They were the most powerful origin forces, and they were indestructible. The god-slaying saber shook violently, then shattered in an instant. Taiyuan shook violently and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper, but his eyes were filled with terror. How is this possible? How did you break through my Tai War God art? His voice was trembling. When the god-slaying saber entered Ling Zhao's mind, it was instantly destroyed by an unparalleled force, causing Ling Zhao to suffer a backlash as well. However, the indestructible primordial spirit was the weakest part. The Tai god-slaying art was so powerful that even Ling Zhao's primordial spirit defensive imperial weapon couldn't completely resist it. Taiyuan couldn't figure out how Ling Zhao had done it no matter how hard he racked his brains. Rumble. Ling Zhao didn't answer him. His aura surged violently as he charged at Taiyuan with the heaven-devouring sword and unparalleled fist intent. He arrived in front of Taiyuan in the blink of an eye. Clang! The heaven-devouring sword slashed through the air. The sword chi was so sharp that it gathered the strongest sword intent. Bolstered by the heaven-devouring sword diagram, it slammed into Taiyuan's protective immortal aura. Boom! Taiyuan's protective immortal light shattered with a boom. Ling Zhao's unparalleled fist intent exploded and slammed into Taiyuan's chest. Zhubi Chinese Network. Chapter 3059. Rumble. Taiyuan's body shook violently. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he spat out blood. The supreme fist intent contained in Ling Zhao's punch blasted into his body. It instantly rushed into his limbs and bones, violently destroying all his meridians, and even causing cracks to appear on his bones. Rumble. The immortal light around Taiyuan was dazzling. Boundless life origin gushed out and rapidly repaired his body. It was as good as new almost instantly. Although Taiyuan's body wasn't as abnormal as Ling Zhao's, he was still a fifth heaven immortal monarch after all. He had already reached the blood rebirth realm. Unless Ling Zhao could wipe out all his vitality in an instant, it wouldn't be so easy to kill him completely. Taiyuan's eyes were filled with fear and horror. He had never thought that the sky-devouring sword in Ling Zhao's hand would be so terrifying. Even the protective immortal light of the Tai Pagoda was broken by it. Kill! Ling Zhao's eyes were like steel as he roared. Killing intent surged around him. The sharp sword chi seemed to be able to penetrate everything. He came with the sky-devouring sword. The sword moved unstoppably in the void like a long rainbow. Its speed was extremely fast as it headed straight for Taiyuan's forehead. Get out of my way! Taiyuan's face was livid. Yin and Yang Qi rose around him like a chain and collided with the sword chi in the sky. A dazzling light burst out. He was burning with anxiety and had a bad feeling. The power of the sky-devouring sword diagram was too terrifying. When Ling Zhao used it, it turned into a terrifying killing domain that enveloped the surrounding void. The Immortal Clan experts, who had been full of momentum, were all killed by the sword chi. They were completely annihilated in this domain. The 9 major immortal sects had more than 300 people. Most of them had died. Only a dozen immortal monarchs were still struggling to hold on. However, it seemed like they wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Under the leadership of Zhanchen Wu Heng and the 36 divine generals, the disciples of the 6 major immortal sects were filled with killing intent. They vented all their anger and killing intent. The experts of the Immortal Clan were all smashed into pieces and their souls scattered. It was impossible for them to leave behind a complete corpse. Damn it! How could Lei Ling be so strong? If this continues, I'm afraid even I won't be his match. Taiyuan thought to himself. Although he didn't want to admit it, he still felt a trace of fear. If this continued, it was very likely that he would die in Ling Zhao's hands. I can't die here. I still want to conquer the Eternal Emperor's road, rule the Tai Immortal sect, and become a peerless immortal emperor. Taiyuan roared inwardly, already thinking of retreating. Rumble. The sharpness in Ling Zhao's eyes was unparalleled, and the battle intent around him surged. Unparalleled sword will and fist will exploded with unstoppable force, as if they could annihilate everything. He keenly sensed the fear in Taiyuan's heart, so he attacked even more fiercely. Although Taiyuan was not as outstanding as the Sword Heart Saint, he was still a fifth heaven immortal monarch, and the leader of the younger generation of the 9 great immortal sections. If he killed Taiyuan, it would be a huge blow to the 9 sects. Boom! The sky-devouring sword was unparalleled, and the sharp sword will cause cracks to appear in the void. The Tai Pagoda crossed the void and collided with the sky-devouring sword, erupting with earth-shattering whistles. Taiyuan's eyes flashed, and in an instant, brilliant immortal light gushed out from his body. A mysterious aura lingered, and auspicious vapor rose into the sky. Whoosh! The vapor instantly turned into 3 figures in the void, a young man, a middle-aged man, and an old man. The 3 of them looked exactly the same as Taiyuan, but their auras were completely different. The I Chi into Trinity technique? This is the real I Chi into Trinity technique. Ling Zhao's eyes lit up. He had obtained the I Chi turning 3 pure ones technique from the Sword Heart Saint. However, the Sword Heart Saint's I Chi turning 3 pure ones technique was obtained from a relic world, and was incomplete. The true inheritance of the I Chi into Trinity technique was in the Tai Immortal sect. The I Chi into Trinity technique that Taiyuan cultivated was naturally the complete version. However, Ling Xiao discovered that Taiyuan's cultivation was somewhat lacking. The 3 clones seemed to only have 80% of the original's strength. Hold him back. Taiyuan's eyes flashed coldly. He pointed at Ling Xiao, then quickly teleported into the distance. He's running away. Rumble. The 3 clones soared through the sky, controlling the Tai Pagoda at the same time. They formed the 3 forces of heaven, earth and man, enveloping Ling Xiao and quickly unleashing fierce attacks. Trying to escape? Too bad the Immortal Demon Grotto's exit won't open for another 10 days. I'd like to see where you can run to. Ling Xiao sneered. He didn't chase after Taiyuan, but charged at the 3 clones with the sky-devouring sword. However, a golden ray of light flew out of Ling Zhao's sleeve and silently chased after Taiyuan's original body. The sky-devouring sword was incomparably fierce, and its sword will seem to be able to penetrate everything. It instantly pierced through the void and enveloped the 3 clones. Clang! The Tai Pagoda emitted a dazzling light, floating above the middle-aged Taiyuan's head. It collided with the sword chi in the sky, annihilating the endless sword chi in an instant before slamming into the sky-devouring sword. The young Taiyuan and the old Taiyuan didn't put up any defense against the sword chi that filled the sky. The sword chi rippled around them like water, and the sword chi couldn't hurt them at all. On the other hand, their attacks were extremely strange and fierce. Although they seemed to be far away from Ling Xiao, every attack landed on Ling Xiao. Interesting. One of the clones came from the past, and the other from the future? This I Chi into Trinity technique actually contains the power of the origin of time. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. The 3 clones didn't seem very strong, but with the Tai Pagoda and their strange attacks, they were able to hold Ling Xiao back. This was exactly what Taiyuan wanted. He didn't expect the 3 clones to be able to kill Ling Xiao. He only hoped that they could hold Ling Xiao back and create an opportunity for him to escape. Rumble. Ling Xiao instantly soared into the sky, and the vast power of time surged around him, forming a long river of time that pressed down on the 3 clones. Clang. The sky-devouring sword in Ling Zhao's hand moved along the long river of time at an extreme speed, instantly slashing the 3 clones. Third Sect Master. Chapter 3060. Boom. The 3 clones were instantly destroyed by the heaven-devouring sword. They transformed into wisps of air and tried to escape, but they were instantly devoured by the heaven-devouring sword's vast devouring power. Wang. The heaven-devouring sword shone brightly as if it had taken a tonic. It shone brightly and looked even sharper. What? Dongfeng Bai, Feng Qingxue, and the others were horrified when they felt Ling Zhao's gaze on them. Their eyes were filled with horror. They did not expect the situation to turn out like this. Taiyuan had escaped, and Ling Xiao had destroyed Taiyuan's 3 clones. Taiyuan had paid a great price to obtain the Longevity Tower's projection, which was powerful enough to kill a peerless immortal monarch, but it did not cause any harm to Ling Xiao. Were the 9 great immortal sects really going to be annihilated today? At the thought of this, Dongfang Bai, Fang Qingxue, and the others lost all their will to fight. They instantly destroyed the surging sword and tent around them and teleported away. You want to leave? Unfortunately, it's too late. Ling Xiao's indifferent voice rang out. When they heard it, they were scared out of their wits. Their eyes were filled with horror. The heaven-devouring sword swept across the void. In an instant, it split into 4 divine swords that reached the heavens and the earth. They stood in 4 different directions of the void, completely sealing off this part of the world. The sword chi was unparalleled. Hundreds of millions of sword lights gathered under the heaven-devouring sword diagram, forming a cage of swords that completely sealed Dongfang Bai and the others inside. Even though Dongfang Bai, Fang Qingxue, and the others had taken out powerful Apex Emperor weapons, they could not break out of the heaven-devouring sword diagram's imprisonment. The cauldron of creation floated in the void like a suspended mountain. The blazing divine light gushing out from it enveloped the few Apex Emperor weapons. Each of them seemed to have lost their Apex Emperor aura, and let out a buzzing sound. Lei Ling, you can't kill us. If you kill us, you'll become an enemy of the 9 great immortal sects. Even if you leave the immortal demon cave, you'll still die. Lei Ling, let me go. I'll never be your enemy again. Spare me, don't kill me. Lei Ling, you'll die a horrible death. The remaining experts from the 9 great immortal sects roared furiously. Some threatened, some begged, and some cursed. However, Ling Xiao's expression was incomparably cold. He looked at them indifferently, like a divine dragon looking down at ants. He did not say a word. He did not attack. Instead, he used the heavenly sword diagram to seal off the surrounding void, preventing them from escaping. As for Zhan Chun, Wu Heng, and the 36 divine generals, they all unleashed their strongest battle prowess. Even though Dongfang Bai, Fang Qingxue, and the others were powerful, they were still killed one by one in the end. They could not escape at all. In the end, only a dozen or so indestructible primordial spirits were imprisoned. Tung Shan then came before Ling Xiao respectfully, and offered the indestructible primordial spirits to him. The dozen or so indestructible primordial spirits were the holy sons and holy daughters of the 9 major immortal sections. There were also some immortal monarchs. Their indestructible primordial spirits contained complete origin Dao fruits and various powerful immortal arts. This was exactly what Ling Xiao needed. Ling Xiao collected all the indestructible primordial spirits and suppressed them in his sea of consciousness, slowly refining them by devouring the origin. Lord God's child, other than Taiyuan who escaped, the rest of the people from the 9 major immortal sects have all been killed. Zhan Chun, whose body was full of murderous intent, strode over and knelt on one knee before Ling Xiao. His eyes were filled with excitement and fanaticism. This was a great victory that had never been achieved in all the previous Immortal Demon Conferences. The previous Immortal Demon Conferences could be said to be the history of the Divines' tears and blood. The Divines were hunted down by the Immortals like prey and slaughtered wantonly. In the end, not even a few hundred of them survived. This time, the Divines still suffered heavy losses. Of the 540 disciples, only 120 were left. This was mainly because when Ling Xiao was in seclusion in the heavenly sword diagram, Taiyuan had gathered the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects and launched a bloody hunt for them. But now, almost all the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects had been killed. Only Taiyuan was left. All the disciples of the 6 major immortal sects were incomparably excited. Their eyes were filled with unparalleled excitement. In addition to fanaticism and worship, they looked at Ling Xiao with much more loyalty. And now, Ling Xiao's position in their hearts had surpassed their sections. They truly believed that Ling Xiao was the leader of the Divines. Taiyuan can't escape. He's dead for sure. I'll go after Taiyuan now. You all stay here and recuperate. Collect the corpses of your fellow Divines and wait for my return. Ling Xiao said indifferently, a trace of fierceness in his eyes. He was also somewhat angry. The disciples of the 6 major immortal sects who had entered the immortal demon cave were the best seeds. Once the bloodline shackles were broken, they would definitely become the most loyal divine generals under Ling Xiao. But more than half of these disciples had been killed by the immortals. The main culprit was Taiyuan. Yes. Zhan Chun, Wu Hen, Tung Shan, and the others bowed in unison. Whoosh! Ling Xiao soared into the sky and disappeared before everyone's eyes in an instant. He could sense that Taiyuan had fled 1,000,000 miles away, and was currently hiding in a secret place to heal his wounds. Ling Xiao's divine consciousness couldn't extend 1,000,000 miles in the immortal demon cave, but Taiyuan still couldn't escape from his grasp. This was because of Xiao Jin. When Taiyuan fled, Ling Xiao didn't choose to pursue him, but had Xiao Jin follow him. Not only did Xiao Jin have the origin of poison, but also the origin of space. With these two origins, Xiao Jin was an extremely abnormal existence. Even Taiyuan didn't notice that a little snake was following him. Ling Xiao was very fast. It didn't take long for him to cross 1,000,000 miles and arrive at a vast mountain range. Whoosh! A ray of golden light shot through the sky and landed in Ling Xiao's palm. It turned into a small golden snake, and looked at Ling Xiao affectionately as it hissed. Is it in this mountain? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he looked at the mountain in front of him. The mountain looked ethereal and peaceful. According to Xiao Jin, Taiyuan had dug a hole in this mountain, and was hiding in it to heal his wounds. Although Xiao Jin had the origin of space, it didn't dare to get too close for fear of being detected by Taiyuan. Ling Xiao took a step forward, stepping into the air and appearing in the air above the mountain in an instant. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from Ling Xiao's body, and then he punched out in the air. When the unparalleled fist landed, it was as if a meteorite had struck the earth. In an instant, the mountain peak was blasted into smithereens. An incomparably wretched figure flew out of the sky. Then he looked at Ling Xiao with incomparable hatred and fear, and instantly fled into the distance. Taiyuan, where do you think you're going? Ling Xiao's eyes were extremely cold. The sky-devouring sword expanded in the void and instantly became 10,000 feet long. Unparalleled sword intent surged as it slashed down at Taiyuan. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3061. Taiyuan felt extremely aggrieved. No matter how he racked his brains, he could not figure out how Lei Ling had found him so quickly. After all, the immortal demon grotto had a strong suppression on divine senses. Even an immortal lord could only scan a radius of 1,000 miles. He had fled 1,000,000 miles away and was about to heal himself when Lei Ling caught up with him. Rumble! The sky-devouring sword was incomparably sharp. Sword intent filled the sky and enveloped Taiyuan. Sensing the threat from the sky-devouring sword, Taiyuan didn't have time to think. Blazing immortal light rose from his body. Yin and yang qi intertwined between his hands, forming a mysterious shadow of a Taiji diagram that flew up to meet the attack. Clang! The sword radiance was dazzling. The Taiji diagram trembled violently. Yin and yang qi spun rapidly, forming a powerful origin qi that blocked the sky-devouring sword's attack. However, the unparalleled recoil still shook Taiyuan and sent him flying. Lei Ling, how did you find me? Taiyuan roared in grief and indignation. If he didn't figure out how Lei Ling discovered him, even if he could escape again, he would still be discovered by Lei Ling. That would be the greatest tragedy. Do you want to know? I'll tell you when you're dead. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. The sky-devouring sword flew through the air, shining with dazzling light. At the same time, the sky-devouring sword diagram spread out and shrouded the void. The terrifying sword qi made Taiyuan's scalp tingle. He felt as if his entire body was being torn apart. Boom! The Tai pagoda tore through the void and crashed into the sky-devouring sword and the sky-devouring sword diagram like an ancient sacred mountain. Blazing light spewed out, shaking the void in all directions. The primitive beasts in the mountain range were all trembling in fear. Lei Ling, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Taiyuan roared, his eyes filled with rage and killing intent. If you're not afraid of me, then why are you running? Ling Xiao said flatly. However, he didn't hold back at all. His sword qi was unstoppable. At the same time, Ling Xiao used a secret teleportation technique and punched at Taiyuan. His physical body was terrifying to the extreme, and his punch seemed to be able to break through the chaos. Even Taiyuan felt a majestic aura that suffocated him. Rumble. His face fell as he summoned the Prime Pagoda. Blazing immortal light gushed out of the pagoda, blocking the attacks of the heaven-devouring sword. Lei Ling, you forced me to do this. There was a hint of madness in Taiyuan's eyes. Rumble. Blazing immortal fire burned around him. Then he suddenly slapped his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. He formed a seal with both hands, and the blood gathered in front of him, turning into an extremely strange black rune. It flowed with mysterious immortal light, as if it could devour all light. After the black rune appeared, Taiyuan seemed to have suffered a great loss of vitality. His face was extremely pale and his presence withered. Swoosh! The black rune flashed and appeared in front of Ling Xiao, emitting a pungent smell. It was as if it was alive and burrowed into Ling Xiao's body. Is this poison origin? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a strange look. He seemed to be frightened and didn't resist at all, allowing the black rune to enter his body. Rumble. His entire body was instantly shrouded in a layer of black poisonous gas. Mysterious runes spread all over his body, trying to destroy his vitality. Ah. Lei Ling, let's see how you're going to survive my 10,000 poisons talisman. Taiyuan laughed heartily when he saw that. His eyes were filled with delight. He'd obtained the 10,000 poisons talisman from an ancient ruin. Legend had it that it was left behind by the 10,000 poisons great emperor in the ancient times. It contained the poison origin formed by 10,000 types of deadly poisons. The 10,000 poisons talisman could even poison a peerless immortal duke to death if they were careless. Earlier, Taiyuan had been pushed to the limit by Ling Xiao, so he'd rather expended half of his bloodline and life origin to activate the 10,000 poisons talisman. The 10,000 poisons talisman? It's indeed very poisonous, but do you really think you can poison me to death? Ling Xiao sighed softly as a trace of pity appeared in his eyes. If he'd been struck by the 10,000 poisons talisman before he'd condensed the Devour origin, he would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. The Devour origin could devour everything, including the poison origin. It was extremely domineering. More importantly, Ling Xiao had Xiao Jin with him. The 10,000 poisons talisman was a death sentence for ordinary people, but it was a supreme delicacy and fortune for Xiao Jin. Without waiting for Ling Xiao to activate the Devour origin, Xiao Jin bit Ling Xiao's arm and excitedly devoured the 10,000 poisons talisman. In an instant, the black gas on Ling Xiao's body dissipated, and the 10,000 poisons talisman's energy was absorbed into Xiao Jin's body. The 10,000 poisons talisman contained half of Taiyuan's bloodline and life origin. It was an unparalleled tonic for Xiao Jin, whose aura instantly skyrocketed. What? How is this possible? Taiyuan's laughter came to an abrupt halt when he saw that Ling Xiao was completely fine. Disbelief was written all over his face. That was the 10,000 poisons talisman. He'd seen it enter Ling Xiao's body with his own eyes. Why was Ling Xiao completely fine? Taiyuan, the 10,000 poisons talisman's toxicity isn't enough. Why don't you have a taste? Ling Xiao smiled faintly, then waved his hand and shot out a beam of golden light. Taiyuan shuddered as he sensed a fatal danger approaching. Without a second thought, he tried to summon the Tai Pagoda back. However, the heaven-devouring sword and the heaven-piercing sword diagram shone brilliantly, erupting with a vast emperor's aura that blocked the Tai Pagoda in an instant. Dazzling light burst out from the collision. Xiao Jin's speed was unbelievably fast, reaching Taiyuan in an instant. Boom! Dazzling protective immortal light erupted from Taiyuan's body as he slashed at Xiao Jin with a palm strike. He didn't know what Xiao Jin was, but he instinctively sensed a fatal threat. This little golden snake was incomparably terrifying. Crack! Taiyuan's vitality was severely injured, so how could his protective immortal light block Xiao Jin? With a crisp sound, his protective immortal light shattered in an instant. His palm strike landed on Xiao Jin's body, emitting the sound of metal clashing. Xiao Jin's physical body was beyond his imagination. It didn't suffer any damage. Meanwhile, Xiaojin bit Taiyuan's arm. Chapter 3062. Boom. The poison origin in Xiaojin's body surged violently and poured into Taiyuan's body. Like a viper, it split into tens of thousands of strands and flowed through his blood vessels to his limbs and bones. Then, Xiaojin looked at Taiyuan mockingly and disappeared with a flash of light. In the next moment, it turned into a golden bracelet on Ling Xiao's wrist. Poison origin. This snake actually has a venomous origin? Taiyuan's eyes were filled with disbelief as he roared madly. Rumble. He was instantly enveloped by a cloud of black qi. The poison origin was extremely domineering. It rapidly destroyed his vitality and even spread toward his indestructible primordial spirit. This was poison origin, the poison of the great Tao, the origin of all poisons. Despite Taiyuan's powerful cultivation, numerous techniques, and many life-saving trump cards, he was helpless against poison origin. He felt the threat of death, and his eyes involuntarily revealed a look of extreme fear. He finally understood why Ling Xiao wasn't afraid of the 10,000 poisons immortal talisman. It turned out that the little snake had devoured all of its power. Taiyuan, how does poison origin taste? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked toward Taiyuan. Lei Ling, you're despicable. Taiyuan roared furiously, a great sense of fear welling up in his heart. Although he tried his best to circulate his cultivation to resist the invasion of poison origin, he only managed to delay the speed of his death by a little. He was still advancing toward death. Taiyuan trembled all over. Shrouded in a layer of pungent black mist, he couldn't stand steadily, and even his vision began to blur. The Tai pagoda floated above his head, and its dazzling immortal light fell, but it couldn't expel the poison origin in his body. The poison source was simply too tyrannical. Without any special defensive techniques or antidotes, the poison source was like a death sentence to all immortal high immortal experts. Despicable? Don't you think that's ridiculous? You used the 10,000 poisons immortal talisman first. Now you're trapped in a trap of your own making, right? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked up to Taiyuan. Puff. Taiyuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood that turned black. When it landed on the ground, it instantly spread in all directions. All the plants within 10,000 feet withered and died instantly. Lei Ling, spare me. As long as you spare me, I'm willing to serve you as my master. Taiyuan begged Ling Xiao for mercy and fear as he sensed the approaching death. Unfortunately, it's too late. Now that your physical body has been completely destroyed by the poison source, you are no longer of any use to me. Why don't you contribute your indestructible primordial spirit? I'm very curious what kind of origin Dao fruit you've condensed. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Taiyuan's flesh and blood turned black from the extreme poison. His bones turned black and shattered like withered bones. Only his head was still glowing, resisting the invasion of the poison origin. Lei Ling, you'll die a horrible death. My master is right outside the immortal demon grotto. You will soon be buried with me. I'll be waiting for you, waiting for you. Taiyuan's eyes were filled with resentment as he cursed loudly. Bang. Ling Xiao ignored his curses. He stretched out a foot and crushed Taiyuan's head. Taiyuan's curses came to an abrupt end. Ling Xiao reached out and grabbed Taiyuan's indestructible primordial spirit. The poison source that enveloped the indestructible primordial spirit turned into a stream of light and was devoured by Xiaojin. Ling Xiao also erased the true spirit of Taiyuan's indestructible primordial spirit and suppressed it in his sea of consciousness. Taiyuan's soul had completely dissipated. Well done. Ling Xiao stroked Xiaojin's head and smiled faintly. Xiaojin was extremely excited. He rubbed his head against Ling Xiao's palm affectionately. His body glowed with dazzling light as if he was about to advance. After all, a fifth heavenly level immortal high immortal contained an incomparably vast amount of life essence. At this moment, it had all become Xiaojin's nourishment. Ling Xiao could sense that Xiaojin's aura was growing stronger and stronger, exuding an ancient and primordial aura. Xiaojin should be some kind of primordial variant, right? Ling Xiao was very curious. He looked forward to seeing how strong Xiaojin would be when he grew up. Whoosh. At this moment, the Tai pagoda buzzed when it sensed Taiyuan's death. It shone with dazzling immortal light and broke through the void, vanishing from the immortal demon grotto. The people from the 9 immortal sects should be extremely surprised right now, right? Ling Xiao muttered to himself as he looked in the direction where the Tai pagoda had disappeared. His eyes were bright and resplendent. This time, all the immortals who had entered the immortal demon grotto had died in battle. Even peerless geniuses like Tai Yuan and the Sword Heart Saint had died in Ling Xiao's hands. Ling Xiao could imagine how furious the 9 immortal sects would be at this moment. Not all of them are dead. There's still Tai Xian. I really can't bear to kill this guy. Ling Xiao muttered to himself as he thought of Tai Xian, who had been imprisoned by him. However, Tai Xian wasn't one of the 540 people from the 9 immortal sects. He had been secretly brought in by Tai Yuan. Ling Xiao could vaguely guess that Tai Yuan had brought Tai Xian in because he was extremely talented in formations. His goal was to break the formations and open the relic worlds. Most likely he was just using Tai Xian. I killed his elder brother and imprisoned him? That's too cruel. Ling Xiao shook his head. A pearl surrounded by yin and yang energy appeared in his palm. It was the yin-yang origin pearl. After killing Taiyuan, he'd discovered the pool of yin and yang energy in Taiyuan's small world. Boom! The pool of yin and yang origin energy was instantly collected by Ling Xiao and turned into a resplendent ball of light that enveloped the yin-yang origin bead and nourished it slowly. The yin-yang origin pearl was a supreme treasure, especially after being nourished by the yin and yang energy. It was a top-grade material. This was a treasure that Ling Xiao had prepared for Jin Sei. It could be used as Jin Sei's natal treasure. If Jin Sei attained the Tao in the future, the yin-yang origin pearl could also transform into a true supreme emperor weapon. Taiyuan condensed the exalted Tao fruit. The exalted Tao fruit formed by the fusion of yin and yang energy is somewhat similar to the exalted Tao palace in the divine world. Could the exalted Tao palace be related to the exalted Tao sect? Ling Xiao thought to himself. He didn't plan to refine the exalted Tao fruit. He planned to give it to Jin Sei along with the yin-yang origin pearl. These discoveries made Ling Xiao vaguely feel that the 9 immortal sects weren't as simple as they seemed. Perhaps the 9 immortal sects aren't the true divine tribe. From the attitude of the 9th prince of the eternal immortal dynasty, it's clear that he doesn't care about the survival of the 9 immortal sects. In that case, the 9 immortal sects aren't the true strength of the immortal tribe. Ling Xiao's eyes flickered, revealing a wisp of wisdom. Chapter 3063. Outside the immortal demon cave. No one from the 9 immortal sects was in the mood to laugh at others or gloat over their misfortune. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Their faces were extremely ugly, filled with shock and anger. In front of them, the 540 life tokens representing the 540 disciples of the 9 immortal sects were all shattered. Even the sage like Tai Qingzi, who looked like a nice guy, paled instantly when Taiyuan's life tablet shattered. His eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. Taiyuan was also dead. Needless to say, he must have died at Lei Ling's hands. As for the 6 divine sects, even though they had suffered heavy casualties and only had around 120 life plates that were still intact, compared to the 9 sects, they were in a much better state. This was an unprecedented victory for the 6 immortal sects. This was all because of the Son of God, Lei Ling. Other than Gu Tongtian, who still looked indifferent, the other 5 supreme elders were extremely excited, their eyes filled with emotion. Ning Wuji, the sect master of heaven-piercing immortal sect, was extremely pleased. Previously, his heaven-piercing immortal sect was completely annihilated, and even the Sword Heart Saint died at Lei Ling's hands. He could clearly feel the gloating of the other 9 immortal sects. Now all the disciples of the 9 immortal sects were dead. Even Taiyuan was dead. Since they were dead, they might as well all die. However, revenge must be taken. Lei Ling must die no matter what. Gu Tongtian, the son of God of the God clan Lei Ling, is really powerful. It seems that you all see him as the hope of the God clan? However, this person has caused a great massacre in the immortal demon cave. Such a cruel person will definitely be a disaster for the immortal world in the future. Therefore he must die. Tai Qingzi took a deep look at Gu Tongtian and said coldly, "What a joke! You all know the rules of the Immortal Demon Conference better than I do. In the Immortal Demon Cave, life and death are up to fate. Can the Immortal Clan kill the God Clan, but the God Clan can't kill the Immortal Clan? Looks like you really don't care about your face this time." Gu Tongtian said with a cold laugh. His eyes were extremely sharp, like a domineering sword that pierced through the heavens, exuding a domineering aura. Other than Tai Qingzi and Ning Wuji, the rest of the immortal sects subconsciously lowered their heads, not daring to look him in the eye. The people of the 9 immortal sects were also embarrassed. Gu Tongtian was right. The immortal demon gathering was a feast of slaughter. The immortal race and the immortal race would fight each other, and life and death would be up to fate. However, in the past immortal demon conferences, the immortal clan had always held the upper hand and suffered very few casualties. They had never thought that they would be completely wiped out. More importantly, the legendary Eternal Emperor Road was about to open in this immortal demon conference. The 9 immortal sects had sent out their holy sons and holy daughters to train in the immortal demon grotto in preparation for the expedition to the Eternal Emperor Road. But who would have thought that a monster like Lei Ling would appear in the 6 divine sects? He was only at the first heaven of the Imperial Emperor realm, but he had slaughtered everyone in the immortal demon cave and killed all the disciples of the 9 divine sects. If they didn't kill Lei Ling, the 9 great immortal sects would become complete laughingstocks. No matter what, Lei Ling had to die. They had to kill Lei Ling, even if they had to find a reason and excuse. Especially Tai Qingzi and Ning Wuji. Although the 2 peerless immortal lords had only glanced at each other, they knew what was going on. They were only waiting for the immortal demon cave to open again. Once Ling Xiao left, they would strike. The 9th prince sat cross-legged on the immortal emperor's chariot. Immortal light surrounded him. His aura was ethereal, and his expression was indifferent. It was as if he did not care about the conflict between the 9 immortal sects and the 6 immortal sects. "Your Highness, that Lei Ling killed Jianxin and Taiyuan. His talent is really amazing. If he's willing to become your follower, he might be able to take that step in the future." The old man in Taoist robe sighed. There was a hint of envy in his voice. Although he was a peerless immortal lord and was only 1 step away from the unparalleled emperor realm, that 1 step was like a chasm between heaven and earth. He knew that there was no hope in his life. But since Lei Ling had caught the 9th prince's eye, there was a great chance. "Become my follower? I'm afraid he might not be willing." The 9th prince said indifferently. His eyes were deep, as if he could see through the void barrier of the immortal demon cave and see the figure inside. "Not willing? This is an opportunity to prove one's Tao. Lei Ling is already lucky enough to be chosen by your highness. Why wouldn't he be willing?" The old man in Taoist robes was taken aback. He shook his head and said, "Maybe I've guessed wrong, but I'm getting more and more interested in this Lei Ling." His Highness the 9th prince smiled faintly. "Your Highness, there's one more thing. It's said that His Highness' great-grandson entered the Hall of Gods. His physical body was destroyed by Lei Ling, and he was revived with the help of the reincarnation pool. If you take Lei Ling in, I'm afraid His Highness' great-grandson will have a problem with you." The old man in Taoist robes pondered for a moment and said slowly, "So what if he has a problem with me? If he can kill Lei Ling, that's his ability. If he can't, I think he's done for." The 9th prince said indifferently. Although his tone was extremely calm, there was an indescribable domineering aura that made the old man in Taoist robes shudder. "Yes." The old man in Taoist robes bowed and replied. Ling Xiao did not know that outside the immortal demon cave, there was a huge uproar because all the disciples of the 9 immortal sects had been wiped out. It even made the 9 immortal sects want to kill him. Ling Xiao could guess the anger of the 9 immortal sects, but he did not take it to heart. After killing Taiyuan, Ling Xiao returned to the valley and met up with Zhangqin, Wu Hen, Tung Shan, and the others. When the people of the God tribe found out that Ling Xiao had killed Taiyuan, and all the disciples of the 9 immortal sects had been wiped out, they were all extremely excited. They looked at Ling Xiao with eyes full of admiration. On the other hand, Zhangqin and Wu Hen brought him good news. They had found the whereabouts of another ancestral god spring. Ancestral God Spring? Very good. With the Ancestral God Spring, the rest of the people will be able to break the bloodline shackles. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he thought to himself. He might be leaving the immortal world soon. However, he did not intend to give up on the powerful force of the God tribe. Before he left, the God tribe had to have enough strength to protect themselves and a stable environment to develop and strengthen, waiting for Ling Xiao to summon them. The people in front of him were the seeds and the most loyal to Ling Xiao. Zhubi Chinese Network. Chapter 3064. Zhan Chen and the others had discovered a relic world in the immortal demon cave that contained the ancestral god spring. However, there was an incomplete emperor formation at the entrance of the relic world. It was extremely powerful and could release destructive immortal light that could destroy everything. Previously, a disciple of the battle god sect had accidentally entered the relic world. Although he was killed by the emperor formation in the end, before his primordial spirit was destroyed, he had passed on the news of the ancestral god spring to Zhan Chen. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't enter the relic world, Zhan Chen, Wu Chen, and the others would have led the disciples of the 6 major divine sects into the relic world to avoid the pursuit of the immortal tribe. An incomplete emperor formation? Let's go take a look. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he said slowly. Under Zhan Chen and Wu Hen's lead, the group traveled 100,000 miles and finally arrived at the bottom of a huge waterfall. Rumble! The waterfall in front of them flowed down from a cliff that was 100,000 feet high. When it hit the pool below, it exploded with a deafening roar. The entrance to the relic world was right behind the waterfall. Ling Xiao leaped up and arrived at the back of the waterfall. He saw waves gathering behind the waterfall and dazzling immortal light lingering around it. He could vaguely see a huge seal that led to an ancient world. Ling Xiao sensed an extremely powerful formation ripple. This was the entrance to the relic world. However, there was an extreme emperor aura at the entrance. Although it was incomplete and chaotic, there was no doubt that it was an emperor formation. This is a formation set up by an immortal emperor. However, there's actually an ancestral god spring in the relic world. Could this be the place where an immortal emperor and an ancestor god battled? Ling Xiao thought to himself. Even though this incomplete emperor formation was extremely powerful, and the emperor's aura within it was so powerful that it could even kill high immortal immortals, the emperor's aura was extremely powerful. However, if Ling Xiao attacked with the heaven-devouring sword, he was confident that he could completely break this incomplete emperor formation. However, if he tried to break the formation with brute force, the relic world would be destroyed instantly. This incomplete emperor formation was connected to the relic world. There was no way to break the formation with brute force. He could only rely on his knowledge of formations to break the formation. The aura of this emperor formation is similar to Tai Yuan's aura. Could this immortal emperor be an immortal emperor from the Tai Yi immortal sect? Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Whoosh! He waved his sleeve and summoned Tai Xian, who had been kept in his small world. Where is this? Lei Ling, where's my brother? Tai Xian asked, staring at Ling Xiao. I've already killed your big brother, Ling Xiao said slowly. His voice was calm, and he did not hide anything from Tai Xian. You killed my big brother? Tai Xian trembled violently, his eyes filled with disbelief and anger. That's right, I killed your brother. Now I need you to break this formation for me. If you can't, I'll kill you, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Although Tai Xian didn't seem like a bad person, and Ling Xiao didn't want to kill him, the hatred between the Celestials and the Immortals had nothing to do with right or wrong. It was a blood feud between the two races that could only be resolved with the extermination of one side. Ling Xiao admired Tai Xian, but if Tai Xian was worthless, he would kill Tai Xian. Hearing this, Tai Xian couldn't help but tremble. Lei Ling, I will avenge my brother. Tai Xian stared at Ling Xiao with red eyes. Do you know that your big brother brought you into the immortal demon cave to make use of your formation skills? He was unwilling to save you in order to kill me, Ling Xiao said calmly. I know, but he's my big brother. If you kill him, I'll avenge him. Tai Xian looked stubborn. Avenge? Of course. But isn't the most important thing for you to survive? Only by surviving can you have a chance to avenge him. Help me break this emperor formation, and I won't kill you, Ling Xiao said with a smile. If I help you break the formation, will you let me go? Tai Xian looked at Ling Xiao and asked. Of course not. You're my captive. But I won't kill you. As long as you're useful to me, I'll keep you alive. It's a fair trade, isn't it? Ling Xiao said with a smile. All right. I'll break the formation for you. Tai Xian took a deep breath and suppressed the sadness and anger in his heart. He raised his head and said calmly, You're a smart man, Ling Xiao said with a smile. He stepped aside and removed the shackles on Tai Xian's cultivation base. Tai Xian felt the powerful energy surging in his body. He wanted to kill Ling Xiao now to avenge his big brother. However, he knew he was no match for Ling Xiao. If he attacked Ling Xiao now, he would die. Tai Xian closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again after a while, all the emotions in his eyes were gone. All that was left was extreme focus. It was as though he had forgotten everything else except for the formation in front of him. Buzz. Tai Xian was surrounded by dazzling immortal light. He quickly formed seals with his hands and branded dazzling runes in the void. They flew toward the broken emperor formation in front of him. The emperor formation trembled slightly and emitted dazzling immortal light. It was like the flow of yin and yang. It was very similar to Tai Xian's aura. Is this really the formation left behind by the celestial emperor of the Tai Yi celestial sect? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he thought to himself. Tai Xian didn't disappoint Ling Xiao. The array formation talent he displayed was stunning. The extremely complicated incomplete emperor array became extremely orderly in Tai Xian's hands and was quickly straightened out. The runes returned to their positions and dazzling immortal light gathered. Finally, the destructive force slowly receded. A void passage appeared in front of Tai Xian. He had opened the formation. Not bad, Tai Xian. You survived, Ling Xiao said with a smile. He flicked his finger and shackled Tai Xian's cultivation base again. However, this time he did not put Tai Xian into the small world. Instead, he was going to bring Tai Xian to the ruins. Since Tai Xian was the celestial emperor of the Tai Yi celestial sect, he might be surprised. The ruins have opened. Follow me. Ling Xiao's voice rang out. It was incomparably indifferent, but it was clearly transmitted to the ears of every member of the divine race. Zhan Chun, Wu Hen, Teng Shan, and the others were shocked. Their eyes were filled with joy. Their god's favorite child was indeed amazing. He could even open such a complicated emperor formation. Everyone leaped into the air and followed Ling Xiao into the world of the ruins. Rumble. Dazzling immortal light shone brightly. After entering the ruins, the first thing Ling Xiao saw was a vast and huge ancestral god spring. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 3065. The ancestral god spring in front of him could be called the ancestral god sea. The ancestral god spring that Ling Xiao had encountered in the world of relics was only a few 100 feet wide. However, the ancestral god spring in front of him was more than 10 times, no, 100 times bigger. The ancestral god spring that was 1,000 miles wide radiated a dazzling golden light. It was crystal clear and had auspicious vapors rising from it. It looked very unique. The spring water in the ancestral god spring surged like a huge wave and contained an extremely majestic aura of life. However, Ling Xiao noticed that there was a celestial mountain floating above the ancestral god spring. The celestial mountain was dazzling and emitted an eternal aura. This is the Immortal King Mountain? Tai Xian's body trembled, and his eyes were filled with joy. Immortal King Mountain? Ling Xiao's eyes lit up. The immortal tribe experts had immortal roots in their bodies. When they cultivated, they would be in harmony with heaven and earth. Therefore, once they cultivated the body of an immortal emperor, it would be like the descent of heaven and earth. They would be able to unleash unparalleled power. When an immortal emperor died, his body would become an immortal king mountain. There was an immortal king mountain here, which meant that this was the place where an immortal emperor died. However, the fact that the Immortal King Mountain was above the ancestral god spring further confirmed Ling Xiao's guess. An ancestor god and an immortal emperor must have fought here, and both of them died. The incomplete Emperor formation at the entrance of the world of relics was probably set up by this immortal emperor. However, could this fallen immortal emperor really be an immortal emperor of the Tai immortal sect? Everyone stay alert. Tai Xian, follow me to the immortal King Mountain. Ling Zhao's eyes lit up as he said slowly. Now that the immortal King Mountain was suppressing the ancestral god spring, he had to solve the problem of the immortal King Mountain. If he wanted to use the power in the ancestral god spring to cleanse his divine power bloodline and transform his body. Ling Xiao left Zhang Chun, Wu Hen Tengshan, and the others to guard here while he flew toward the immortal King Mountain with Tai Xian. Tai Xian naturally did not reject it. On the contrary, he was extremely excited and expectant. If this immortal King Mountain was really left behind by an immortal emperor of the Tai immortal sect, then who else could inherit it? Lei Ling Xiao would definitely not be able to inherit it. At that time he might even have the chance to avenge his elder brother. Thinking of this, Tai Xian's heart was filled with impatience and anticipation. Whoosh! Grabbing Tai Xian, Ling Xiao passed through the misty clouds and auspicious aura above the immortal Emperor Mountain like lightning and landed on the immortal Emperor Mountain. Rumble! As soon as Ling Xiao and Tai Xian landed on the immortal King Mountain, the world around them roared. They felt a vast extreme emperor's aura pressing down on them. The Supreme Emperor aura was extremely powerful and contained a mysterious aura of the supreme origin and the great Tao unification. Its aura was majestic and terrifying. It directly affected one's primordial spirit, making it impossible for one to resist. Ling Xiao and Tai Xian crashed into the immortal King Mountain like meteors. They couldn't fly at all. Boom! Ling Xiao punched the mountain under his feet. Immediately, the celestial great mountain rumbled. However, there were no cracks on the mountain. There was only a white mark. Instead, Ling Xiao's arm was slightly numb from the impact. What a sturdy immortal King Mountain! Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. The immortal King Mountain was formed by the physical body of a celestial emperor. Although it was not as strong as an extreme emperor weapon, it was not far off. Ling Xiao slowly stood up. The vast extreme emperor aura pressed down on him, making him feel as though he was carrying hundreds of millions of sacred mountains. However, Ling Xiao's physical body was so strong that such a powerful extreme emperor aura could only stop him from flying. It did not cause him any harm. Boom! 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 Every step Ling Xiao took caused a loud rumble, causing the immortal Emperor Mountain to tremble. This guy! What a strong physical body! Even the extreme Emperor aura of the immortal Emperor Mountain can't hurt him? Tai Xian clicked his tongue, his eyes filled with disbelief. However, he was not affected at all. He was surrounded by immortal light and the aura of the immortal clan. Moreover, he was using the supreme immortal technique of the Tai immortal sect in his body. Instantly, the powerful extreme emperor aura melted like snow. He could walk freely on the immortal Emperor Mountain. Tai Xian speculated that the immortal Emperor Mountain had something to do with the celestial emperor of the Tai immortal sect. However, Tai Xian also gave up on the thought of running away. He could feel that if Ling Xiao wanted to kill him, it would be a piece of cake even on the immortal Emperor Mountain. Tai Xian, since the immortal Emperor Mountain was formed by the celestial emperor, it should be the celestial emperor's body. Where is the celestial emperor's inheritance? Ling Xiao looked at Tai Xian and asked curiously. He was not worried that Tai Xian would run away or steal the celestial emperor's inheritance. Tai Xian was just a stepping stone for Ling Xiao. The celestial emperor's inheritance is naturally in the celestial emperor's sea of consciousness. The peak of the immortal Emperor Mountain is formed by the celestial emperor's head. If you want to obtain the inheritance, you have to go there. Tai Xian snorted coldly. In that case, let's go. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked toward the peak of the mountain. The immortal Emperor Mountain was tens of thousands of feet tall. Its majestic extreme emperor aura prohibited flying, so Ling Xiao could only walk step by step. Moreover, the closer he got to the peak, the stronger the extreme emperor aura became. In the end, Ling Xiao had to circulate all his cultivation to resist the extreme emperor aura and climb the immortal Emperor Mountain. On the other hand, Tai Xian was very relaxed. He walked leisurely in front of Ling Xiao as if he was sightseeing. Rumble. The majestic extreme emperor aura suppressed Ling Xiao's body, and even his indestructible primordial spirit, trying to crush him into dust. At the beginning, Ling Xiao resisted the extreme emperor aura with his strong body. In the end, he simply let go of his resistance and allowed the extreme emperor aura to suppress his body. It went deep into his bones, blood vessels, and even his sea of consciousness. The powerful emperor's aura merged with Ling Xiao's body. Not only did Ling Xiao's physical body improve, but the emperor's aura was also refined by Ling Xiao's devouring origin. This devouring Dao fruit can even devour extreme emperor aura? Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. Extreme emperor aura was the ultimate power of a great emperor. It was the only one in the world and was vast and unparalleled. It was the pinnacle of a great Dao. Ling Xiao could not believe that the devouring Dao fruit could devour such a terrifying power. Although it was a little slow, Ling Xiao could still feel that the devouring Dao fruit was slowly growing and becoming stronger. It felt like the devouring Dao fruit was using the extreme emperor aura as nourishment for himself. Chapter 3066. Rumble. Ling Xiao finally arrived at the peak of the immortal Emperor Mountain, facing the majestic monarch aura. The scene before him was magnificent. Celestial light shone brightly and auspicious vapors rose. The surrounding void trembled violently and became chaotic and distorted. All kinds of mysterious phenomena appeared. Ling Xiao and Tai Xian could vaguely see two peerless great emperors fighting in the depths of the void. Each of their attacks could destroy a world and cause it to fall into ruins. Even though they were separated by endless time and space, Ling Xiao and Tai Xian could still feel the majestic aura from the battle. Is this the scene of the battle between an ancestor god and a celestial emperor? Is this the mark left on the celestial emperor mountain? Ling Xiao was full of praise and admiration in his heart. This was the power of a peerless great emperor. With a wave of his hand, he could destroy everything in the world and kill billions of living beings. In front of a great emperor, the so-called celestial dukes were as weak as ants. The pinnacle of Dao could be called an emperor. Ling Xiao had an incomparably deep understanding of this sentence. This celestial emperor might be the Tai Yi celestial emperor of the Tai Yi celestial sect. I wonder who the ancestor god is. Tai Xian said excitedly. The Tai Yi celestial emperor? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. That's right. He's the founder of the Tai Yi celestial sect, the Tai Yi celestial emperor, who once dominated the celestial world. Tai Xian said confidently. Why are you so sure? Ling Xiao asked. Because of this. A light flashed in Tai Xian's palm, and a broken sword appeared. It was missing the hilt and the body, leaving only a section of the sword. However, the section of the sword was emitting a dazzling light, forming a strange resonance with the celestial emperor mountain. Tai Xian loosened his grip, and the section of the sword flew into the sky. It shone brightly and merged with the celestial emperor mountain. This section of the sword used to be the Tai Yi celestial emperor's sword. It's also the key to opening the Tai Yi celestial emperor's inheritance. Unfortunately, we haven't found the whereabouts of the Tai Yi celestial emperor for so many years. I didn't expect him to be in the celestial demon cave and here. Tai Xian said slowly, his eyes filled with emotions. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, the immortal King Mountain began to shake violently. Resplendent immortal light filled the air and auspicious vapors rose. A gigantic vortex appeared in the sky. My successor, you've come. An incomparably old voice resounded in the void. An old figure appeared in front of Ling Xiao and Tai Xian. He was wearing a white Taoist robe. His hair and beard were all white. He had an extraordinary appearance and an ancient sword on his back. Although the figure was somewhat illusory, it exuded an incomparably powerful aura. Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. Tai Xian's body trembled, and his eyes were filled with excitement. The old man looked identical to the statue of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor that was enshrined in the Tai Yi Celestial sect. His heart was incomparably excited, as if he was on a pilgrimage. His legs went soft, and he instantly knelt in front of the old man. I'm not Immortal Emperor Tai Yi. Immortal Emperor Tai Yi has fallen long ago. I'm only a remnant intent left behind by him. Get up. The old man sighed and raised his hand. Tai Xian could not help but stand up. The remnant intent of immortal Emperor Tai Yi? Ling Zhao's eyes glinted as he carefully studied the old man. The old man seemed to have ignored Ling Xiao. All of his attention was on Tai Xian. Based on Ling Zhao's observation, the old man's body was filled with death aura. Although he had powerful mental energy, he did not seem to have a true spirit. Indeed, he was a remnant intent. Thank you, Patriarch. Tai Xian stood up excitedly. His eyes were full of passion. I've waited for countless years, and today, I've finally met someone from the Tai Yi Celestial sect. Successor, come with me. You're the only one who's qualified to inherit immortal Emperor Tai Yi's legacy. The old man sighed. Then he waved his sleeve, and a majestic force swept over and swept Tai Xian up. Then the two of them turned into streams of light, and disappeared into the vortex in an instant. Their speed was so fast that even Ling Xiao could not react in time. Moreover, a majestic emperor's aura instantly pressed down on Ling Xiao's body. It was as if the old man had done it on purpose. Something's wrong. Since the remnant intent of immortal Emperor Tai Yi pretended to ignore me, why did he suppress me? It's as though he's afraid I'll stop him. Ling Zhao's eyes glowed as he muttered to himself. Rumble. At this moment, the celestial emperor mountain suddenly stirred up a storm. Endless celestial light gathered, and a powerful destructive aura erupted. The lightning was dazzling, and the destructive celestial light seemed to be able to penetrate everything. At the same time, it was mixed with invisible sword qi. The sword qi gathered around Ling Xiao and suppressed him. Ling Zhao's eyes glinted, and a murderous aura spread out. He was almost certain that the remnant intent of immortal Emperor Tai Yi had attacked him. However, regardless of whether the remnant intent was trying to stop Ling Xiao or had ulterior motives, it had triggered Ling Zhao's killing intent. Boom! Ling Xiao threw out a punch, and an unparalleled fist will erupted. It surged in all directions, and everything was suppressed. Instantly, the divine light in the sky was shattered. Clang! The heaven-devouring sword buzzed, and was instantly unsheathed. It emitted a dazzling radiance as it swept across the sky. The attacks that were surging towards Lin Fan from all directions crumbled, as if they were dried-up twigs. Ling Zhao's sword swept across the sky and slashed down on the Celestial Emperor Mountain. The heaven-devouring sword turned into a 10,000 zhang sword astral in the void. It was sharp to the extreme as it slashed down on the Immortal King Mountain. Sounds of metal clashing could be heard as the aura surged out from the impact. The Celestial Emperor Mountain was extremely sturdy, and it was not cut open by the sky-devouring sword. However, the sky-devouring sword penetrated the vortex passageway that had just appeared, and a majestic aura came from it. Ling Xiao held the sky-devouring sword, and stepped into the vortex passageway. Rumble! The surroundings were filled with celestial light and chaotic mist. Ling Xiao seemed to have arrived at the beginning of the world, and entered a strange space. At this moment, Tai Xian was floating in the void, surrounded by a black aura. His face had become extremely ferocious, as though he was going to lose his mind at any moment. It was as though Ling Zhao's appearance had freed him from some kind of restraint. His eyes were filled with anxiety as he shouted at Ling Xiao. Master Lei Ling, save me. He's not a remnant intent, he's... Chapter 3067. Possession. Ling Zhao's eyes lit up. Tai Xian's current state was as though he had been possessed by someone else. The presence of darkness had already invaded his entire body, and gathered in the sea of consciousness between his eyebrows. It probably wanted to devour his soul right now and replace it completely. Something's wrong. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a majestic and mysterious light as he activated the Eye of the Dominator. Tai Xian's sea of consciousness between his eyebrows became extremely clear. A black shadow had wrapped around Tai Xian's primordial spirit, and was trying to refine it. The shadow was the remnant consciousness of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor that Ling Xiao had just seen. How dare you? Ling Xiao roared. He took a step forward and slammed his palm down on Tai Xian. Boom. A powerful emperor's aura spread out. Ling Xiao's eyes seemed to be shooting out a beam of light that could penetrate everything. It was the power of the Eye of the Dominator. It was the power of the Dominator formed by the 4 origin secret techniques. It shot directly at Tai Xian's Sea of Consciousness. "You're courting death." At this moment, a sharp voice rang out. It was so harsh that it could disturb one's mind. In front of Ling Xiao, an endless amount of black fog surged. In an instant, it started to burn like a raging flame. The black flames boiled like the sea, surging and enveloping Ling Xiao's entire body. It contained an extremely evil power that could corrode everything. It wanted to turn Ling Xiao into a pool of blood. The black fog twisted and formed a huge figure. It was the remnant consciousness of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. The remnant consciousness of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor? I think you're the evil consciousness of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. Ling Xiao snickered coldly. His expression was extremely cold as he punched out. The supreme force that could crush mountains and rivers erupted, directly blasting away most of the black fog in front of him, turning it into nothingness. The beam of light formed by the Dominator's aura shot into Tai Xian's Sea of Consciousness and penetrated the black shadow. A muffled groan was heard. The black shadow had clearly suffered heavy injuries and had become somewhat illusory. Tai Xian's primordial spirit, which was suppressed by the black shadow, suddenly woke up. He was overjoyed and immediately launched a counterattack. Rumble. Immortal light and black light intertwined on Tai Xian's body. Tai Xian and the black shadow were frantically fighting for control of the body. "Lord Leiling, quickly kill this evil intent. It's not the remnant intent of Celestial Emperor Tai Yi. It's an evil intent formed from Celestial Emperor Tai Yi's body." Tai Xian's voice was heard intermittently, which made Ling Xiao's eyes shine brightly. As he had expected, the remnant was just a strand of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor's evil thoughts. Evil thoughts were formed from thoughts. If they could be nurtured for countless years, they would be able to give birth to a new primordial spirit, or even an extremely evil being. They could possess powerful creatures and strengthen themselves. In the beginning, Tai Yi Celestial Emperor's evil thoughts were only thoughts. However, after Tai Yi Celestial Emperor's death, the evil thoughts hid in his body and nurtured for countless years before they gradually gained sentience and became a dark primordial spirit. It was no wonder the evil thoughts were so impatient earlier. It had sensed Tai Xian was from the Tai Yi Celestial sect and had the same origin as Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. That was why it wanted to possess Tai Xian's body. If Ling Xiao had come in a little later, it might have succeeded. However, what it did not expect was that not only did it fail to kill Ling Xiao after activating the Immortal Emperor Mountain's powerful Emperor's aura, Ling Xiao had also decisively charged in. Naturally, it was furious that Ling Xiao had ruined its plan. "You deserve to die." A bone-chilling voice that was filled with resentment rang in the air. In an instant, black devil flames surged toward Ling Xiao. The black flames were formed from the evil thoughts and could corrode everything. Once touched, not only would one's physical body be destroyed, but one's primordial spirit would also be destroyed. At the same time, the evil thoughts let out a terrifying shriek. It contained a powerful primordial spirit attack as it charged toward Ling Xiao. Although the evil thoughts were just thoughts, they were still the evil thoughts of a celestial emperor. If it succeeded in possessing Tai Yi Celestial Emperor's body, it could be said to be another form of rebirth for Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. Since Ling Xiao had obstructed its rebirth, it naturally retaliated in a frenzied manner. Boom! Ling Xiao's eyes were cold, and a vast heavens might exploded around him. Behind him, it was as if a purple sun had risen, exploding with endless thunder and lightning, enveloping his entire body. He had activated the Heavenly Punishment Secret Technique. The Heavenly Punishment Secret Technique's yang attribute was the bane of evil beings like Tai Yi Celestial Emperor. Moreover, Ling Xiao had condensed the Heavenly Punishment Dao fruit, so his explosive power was unstoppable. He soared through the air, his fists moving unhindered. Purple Heavenly Punishment power lingered around them as they collided with the black flames in the sky. In an instant, lightning exploded and annihilated the black flames. At the same time, Ling Xiao's body exuded a vast devouring power. As he extinguished the evil flames, he executed the sky-devouring secret skill to devour the powerful origin source energy. Although it was the most evil energy, after being purified by the heavenly punishment power, it became the purest origin energy that could be refined and absorbed by Ling Xiao. Furthermore, even if the dark flames were to enter Ling Xiao's body, they wouldn't be able to corrode Ling Xiao's body at all. Instead, they would be purified by the power of heaven's punishment before being devoured by Ling Xiao's body. As for the powerful sound wave, after entering Ling Xiao's spiritual sea, it was dissolved by the dozen or so Dao fruits. It couldn't cause any harm to Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit. Just like that, Ling Xiao strode forward with a monstrous and unstoppable aura. The dark remnant consciousness panicked. Although it had many tricks up its sleeve, Ling Xiao was like a tortoise shell in front of it. It couldn't bite anywhere. Whether it was the most evil black flames or the powerful sound wave attack, they couldn't affect Ling Xiao at all. Instead, Ling Xiao soared through the air and headed straight for Taixian. He wanted to completely annihilate the evil remnant consciousness. At that moment, the evil remnant consciousness had gained the upper hand. Although it had been injured by the ruler power, it wasn't something Taixian could withstand. It was about to envelop Taixian's primordial spirit again. However, Ling Xiao had already charged over. Boom! Ling Xiao slammed his palm down from the sky. Purple heavenly punishment power surged and suppressed Taixian's head. At that moment, the evil remnant consciousness's eyes revealed an extremely strange expression. Ant-like thing. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Sink into the darkness forever. A cold and mocking voice rang out. The apex. Chapter 3068. Rumble. Ling Xiao suddenly felt a chill run down his spine as a vast and terrifying emperor's aura erupted from his body. Boundless power of darkness gathered in the sky, forming a dark figure that was 1,000,000 meters tall. Its eyes were like blood-red moons as it looked at Ling Xiao mockingly. And that extreme emperor's aura had erupted from his body. Oh no, there are two evil intents? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed coldly as he thought to himself. Boom. Black mist surged in the sky as the dark figure that was over 1,000,000 feet tall shot across the sky like a stream of light, and entered Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. Ling Xiao did not even have the strength to resist the suppression of the emperor's aura that was so powerful that it made one despair. A dark aura surged and began to corrode Ling Xiao's body as if it had a mind of its own, and wanted to take control of Ling Xiao's body. Kiki. What a perfect physical body. If I can take over your body, I might be able to return to my peak one day. The evil intense cold voice reverberated in Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness, causing Ling Xiao to feel as if he was imprisoned by the dark energy. Rumble. In Ling Xiao's primordial spirit sea of consciousness, the huge figure of the evil intent reappeared. His demonic aura was vast and terrifying. He stared at Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness with eyes full of surprise. 16 Dao fruits? You're just a first heaven immortal monarch. Yet you've condensed 16 Dao fruits? It seems like you really have a big secret. The evil intent exclaimed as his gaze fell on the 16 Dao fruits around Ling Xiao's primordial spirit. His eyes were filled with excitement and shock. The aura of this sword and sword diagram is very familiar to me. Could it be some old guy's treasure? It's perfect for me to use as a protective treasure. The evil intent also saw the sky-devouring sword and the sky-reaching sword diagram, and a trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. However, the powerful sword essence that the sky-devouring sword exuded made the evil intent extremely tempted. He seemed to have taken Ling Xiao as his prey and began to patrol his territory, trying to find out the secret of this divine tribe member. Moreover, he discovered how terrifying Ling Xiao's physical body was. It was actually stronger than many high-level immortal monarchs, and even supreme immortal monarchs. Ling Xiao's primordial spirit space was also extremely vast, like a great world. This represented the depth of Ling Xiao's foundation. The more the evil spirit looked, the more satisfied he was. Are you done? Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a divine light as he spoke indifferently. His indestructible soul was the same as his actual body. It shone with purplish golden light, like a supreme emperor. It sat under the vast starry sky, giving off a dignified and invincible presence. At this moment, Ling Xiao did not show the slightest bit of fear in the face of the evil spirit that was 1,000,000 feet tall. His expression was extremely calm. "Kid, you're not a member of the celestial race, nor are you a member of the immortal race. I didn't expect that someone from the greater thousand world would sneak into the immortal world. You're a human? But you have the aura of a dragon in your body. How strange." The evil spirit looked at Ling Xiao with interest. "You have a good eye, but I'm curious. Why does Tai Yi Immortal Emperor have two evil intents?" Ling Xiao asked indifferently as he looked at the evil spirit in front of him. "You're about to die, and you're still in the mood to ask these questions? If that's the case, I'll satisfy your curiosity." The evil spirit sneered. It seemed that it had been here for hundreds of millions of years, and was fed up with loneliness. Therefore, it did not choose to possess Ling Xiao immediately. Instead, it chatted with Ling Xiao as though they were old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Tai Yi Immortal Emperor, of course, only has one evil spirit. It's the one who's possessing that kid. However, I'm not Tai Yi Immortal Emperor, nor am I Ancestor God Azura. I'm the combination of Tai Yi Immortal Emperor and Ancestor God Azura. I'm the fusion of their primordial spirits. The evil spirit smiled faintly, and admitted his identity without the slightest hesitation. The fusion of Tai Yi Immortal Emperor and Ancestor God Azura's primordial spirits? Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback. It was no wonder that there were two evil spirits. The weak evil spirit from before was formed by Tai Yi Immortal Emperor's evil spirit. This evil spirit was the combination of Tai Yi Immortal Emperor and Ancestor God Azura. It was no wonder it was so powerful. Moreover, it had probably been watching Ling Xiao for a long time. That's right. Therefore, it doesn't matter to me whether you're from the deity clan or the immortal clan. With your body, I'll definitely return to the peak. It's your honor. The evil spirit smiled faintly. What if I don't want to be possessed by you? Ling Xiao asked calmly. You don't want to? Do you think you can do whatever you want? I admit that your talent is extraordinary. It's the first I've seen in my life. You've condensed 16 Dao fruits, which is extremely rare. You're also protected by an Apex Emperor weapon. If you're given time, your future will be limitless. Unfortunately, you've met me. No matter how strong your talent is, you'll only benefit me. The evil spirit smiled proudly. Do you know why I'm able to condense 16 Dao fruits? Ling Xiao suddenly asked. Why? The evil spirit was curious as well. He could see that Ling Xiao's 16 fruits of the way were perfect and flawless, and all of them contained the complete source of the great path. This was simply unbelievable. It was already extremely difficult for an immortal lord to condense one origin Dao fruit, let alone 16 origin Dao fruits. He guessed that Ling Xiao must have had a fortuitous encounter. However, he didn't know what kind of fortuitous encounter could have created such a heaven-defying talent. Because I can devour other people's Dao fruits. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a faint smile, and his eyes instantly became bright and resplendent. What? The evil spirit's body shook, and a blazing light burst out from its eyes. Devour other people's Dao fruits? He had never heard of such a thing. Even great emperors couldn't directly devour other people's Dao fruits. They could only slowly comprehend the origin energy in the Dao fruits to speed up their cultivation. However, the evil spirit vaguely recalled something. He seemed to remember that there was a treasure that could devour other people's Dao fruits. Rumble. At that moment, Ling Xiao's consciousness glowed brightly. Two treasures slowly rose into the sky, exuding an ancient and vigorous aura. One was a heavenly book that was neither gold nor jade. There were no words on it. The other was a round jade disc that shone with dense layers of light. It seemed to contain 3,000 mysterious halos. They were the wordless heavenly book and the good fortune jade disc. This was the first time Ling Xiao had fully activated the wordless heavenly book and the good fortune jade disc. The vast energy around him surged toward the two treasures in a mighty manner. The wordless heavenly book and the good fortune jade disc intertwined with dazzling light, and shot toward the evil spirit. What? These are Chaos treasures? The evil spirit trembled when he sensed the aura from the two treasures. Suddenly he seemed to have thought of something. Disbelief filled his eyes. Boom. At that moment, the wordless heavenly book and the good fortune jade disc slammed into the evil spirit's body. The apex. Chapter 3069. The evil spirit was a pure spiritual entity. Although it was extremely powerful, it was formed from the evil spirits of immortal Emperor Tai Yi and ancestor god Azura. It could instantly imprison Ling Xiao's body and consciousness, making it even stronger than the indestructible primordial spirits of peerless immortals. Even if it wasn't as strong as the primordial spirits of great emperors, it wasn't far off. However, the pure spiritual entity was perfectly countered by the wordless heavenly tome and creation jade disc. Crack. When the wordless heavenly tome and creation jade disc collided, the million-meter-tall evil spirit trembled. Cracks appeared all over its body, and it shattered with a loud boom. Rumble. Black mist filled the air and spread toward Ling Xiao's consciousness. The evil spirit let out an incomparably sharp shriek, causing Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit to tremble violently. The 16 origin Dao fruits were trembling, as if they were about to be shattered by the sharp whistling sound. The wordless heavenly tome and creation jade disc glowed brightly. The wordless heavenly tome released a majestic devouring vortex that swallowed the evil spirit in an instant. The creation jade disc hovered above the wordless heavenly tome, sprinkling down 3,000 rays of dazzling light that wound around the book like divine chains of order. The two chaos ultimate treasures unleashed unparalleled divine might at the same time, as they began to refine the malicious intent. Ah, damn it! How can you have chaos treasures? And the legendary wordless heavenly tome and creation jade disc at that? Who the hell are you? The evil spirit's furious roar rang out from the wordless heavenly tome. It was icy cold, filled with shock and a trace of fear. These were legendary chaos treasures that even great emperors coveted. They were treasures that could kill great emperors. Ling Xiao had 2 of them. The evil spirit finally understood why Ling Xiao had been able to condense 16 origin Dao fruits. With the wordless heavenly tome and creation jade disc, condensing origin Dao fruits was a simple matter. Rumble. The evil spirit went completely berserk. Terrifying black mist rose into the air and formed terrifying flames that burned fiercely. The wordless heavenly tome trembled violently, as if the evil spirit would escape at any moment. The terrifying fluctuations shocked even Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit. This evil spirit is so powerful? I'm afraid the power of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor, an ancestor god Azura's primordial spirit has merged into this guy's body? Ling Xiao was shocked. Although the malevolent intent was a spiritual body, it was probably not inferior to a true great emperor in terms of spiritual strength and power. Otherwise, the wordless heavenly book and the good fortune jade disc would not have been able to barely suppress the evil spirit. Of course, this could also be because Ling Xiao's cultivation was too weak. The evil spirit. SSSSS. Ling Xiao's heart trembled. Brat, how about you let me go? If you let me go, I swear I won't take over your body. I'll also pass on the celestial skills and divine skills of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor and ancestor god Azura to you. Aren't you tempted by the inheritance of 2 great emperors? The evil spirit's voice came from the wordless heavenly tome. It sounded tempting. Although it struggled violently, the dark energy had been refined by the wordless heavenly tome. There was no way it could escape. Since that was the case, it chose to give in. Let you go? Let you go so you can take over my body? Moreover, as long as I refine you, the inheritance of Tai Yi Celestial Emperor and ancestor god Azura will be mine. Ling Xiao sneered. He was not moved at all. Boy, don't force me. Otherwise I'll self-destruct and destroy the inheritance of 2 great emperors. You won't get anything. The evil spirit roared and began to threaten Ling Xiao. Why don't you self-destruct then? It's just the inheritance of 2 great emperors. It doesn't matter if I don't get it. However, I must kill you today. Ling Xiao sneered. The wordless heavenly tome shone brightly. In the beginning, It was trembling violently as if the evil spirit was trying to escape from it. However, as the two chaos treasures unleashed their full power, the evil spirit's power began to be refined by the wordless heavenly tome. As time went by, the evil spirit's resistance became weaker and weaker. The evil spirit felt that it was about to be completely destroyed by the wordless heavenly tome. It panicked. "Don't kill me. I can acknowledge you as my master and obey your orders. I won't dare to be your enemy anymore." There was a hint of pleading in the evil spirit's voice. It really did not want to die. It had been nurtured for countless years, and absorbed the supreme power of the two great emperors to form the evil spirit. It had not enjoyed the taste of stepping on the peak and dominating all living things. How could it be willing to die? Ling Xiao was so determined to kill it that it was truly afraid. It did not hesitate to acknowledge Ling Xiao as its master in order to live. "Acknowledge me as your master? I'm afraid you'll turn on me. It's better for you to die," Ling Xiao said coldly. "No, I won't turn on you. Master, your wordless heavenly tome still doesn't have an artifact spirit, right? I can become the artifact spirit of the wordless heavenly tome. I'll also tell you two big secrets about the wordless heavenly tome and the eternal emperor's road. You won't regret it." The evil spirit was completely flustered. There was a hint of pleading in its voice, and it was no longer as domineering as before. However, its words made Ling Xiao's heart skip a beat. The secrets of the wordless heavenly tome and the eternal emperor's road? Although Ling Xiao's physical body had merged with the wordless heavenly tome because of the self-destruction of the wordless heavenly tome, he still had not fully explored the secrets of the wordless heavenly tome. Just like how the Emperor of Kunwu Mountain had warned him to be careful of the wordless heavenly tome, Ling Xiao still had not found the whereabouts of the artifact spirit of the wordless heavenly tome. It seemed that the evil spirit knew a lot. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Immediately, the wordless heavenly tome and the fortune jade disc stopped devouring and refining the evil spirit. However, it was still suppressed in the wordless heavenly tome. "Tell me, what are the secrets of the wordless heavenly tome and the eternal emperor's road? If the secrets you tell me are satisfactory, I'll spare your life," Ling Xiao said indifferently. Ling Xiao naturally wanted to know the secrets of the wordless heavenly tome. According to the Emperor of Kunwu Mountain, the Eternal Emperor's road was inextricably linked to the immortal realm. However, until now he had not found any information about the Eternal Emperor's road. Perhaps the evil spirit could bring him an unexpected surprise. "Master, although the wordless heavenly tome is the top of the 10 great chaotic treasures, it's an inauspicious item. If the artifact spirit of the wordless heavenly tome returns one day, you'll definitely become the artifact spirit's food and die." The evil spirit's first sentence made Ling Xiao's body tremble, and his hair stand on end. The apex that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.